Chapter 4404. Seeing that Yi Xian was about to leave, the 16 old fellows panicked and urged him to stay. Young Master Xian Yuan, please stay. Don't be in such a hurry to leave. Yes, let's talk nicely. Even if we doubt young Master Xian Yuan's alchemy skills, we just want young Master to stay and discuss the path of alchemy with you. That's right, in our Emperor Xian starfield, there's a whole set of alchemy techniques from the prehistoric era. If you're interested, we're willing to take it out for you to study. This set of alchemy techniques is all-encompassing and extremely complex. If you want to study it thoroughly, I'm afraid you'll need a lot of time. Young Master Xian Yuan, why don't you stay in our Emperor Xian starfield temporarily, and we'll study it with you slowly? If that's the case, I'm indeed quite interested in alchemy. If that's the case, then lead the way. Since he'd already said so much, Yi Xian didn't continue pretending. He stopped in his tracks and pondered for a moment. In the end, he waved his hand, turned around, and flew into the demonic dragon imperial carriage. Seeing that he had finally agreed to stay for the time being, the 16 emperors of the Xian Emperor starfield heaved a sigh of relief. After exchanging glances, they immediately flew out and led the way, leading Yi Xian to the distant space in front of them. A large planet with life. At this time, Yi Xian, the 7 great gorgeous cultivators, and the elephant fox sable had all returned to the demon dragon imperial carriage. However, they didn't enter the inner space of the carriage. They waited in the front yard of the carriage that was covered by the dense fog. With a thought, they controlled the carriage and turned it into one. Controlling the carriage, they shot out a black light. After a while, the group entered the atmosphere of this huge life star. The 16 emperors leading the way landed in a huge valley. The environment was beautiful, and the spiritual energy was dense. They should be one of the 4 half-step emperors. It was one of the emperor's cave dwelling. Rumble. A huge rumble resounded, and the ground shook slightly. The demonic dragon carriage landed on one side of the huge valley. Immediately after, the 9 demonic dragons transformed into black lights and entered the carriage's space under Yi Xian's control. Only the demonic dragon was left on the ground of the valley. It looked like a small house with a front courtyard. Moreover, there was a curtain formed by dense immortal mist. It had an antique feel, and its artistic conception was quite compatible with this valley with oppressive spiritual energy. Close. Xiao. The foggy front yard was retracted, and the 7 gorgeous cultivators returned to the carriage's space. Only Yi Xian walked out of the carriage with the elephant fox Martin on his shoulder. The treasure-seeking mouse bloodline in the old man's body was probably causing trouble again. His nose twitched slightly, and he looked around from time to time. He looked shifty and seemed to be itching to make a move. However, in front of Yi Xian and the 16 undying emperors, he didn't dare to have any ideas about their treasures in their lair. In the end, he didn't act impulsively and shoot away. Young Master Xian Yuan. This jade scroll contains the complete pill-making technique passed down by the tribe of the Emperor Xian starfield. Please take a look. Xiao. Just as he walked out of the imperial carriage, the leader of the 4 half-step emperors, Zhao Dong, quickly walked over and respectfully cupped his fists towards Yi Xian. Just as he finished speaking, he raised his hand and a green light shot towards Yi Xian. This was obviously a jade scroll. Yi Xian casually received it and scanned it with his divine sense. With his powerful divine sense of the titled Emperor realm, he was able to instantly imprint everything recorded in the jade slip. In an instant, a single data file was formed in the Devouring system's database. Xiao. With a wave of his hand, the azure jade slip was returned to its original state by Yi Xian. It shot out and once again fell into Zhao Dong's hands. After that, Yi Xian nodded and said, "This pill-making technique is indeed not bad, but I only scanned it briefly. I'll have to study it later. I'm afraid it'll take a long time. You don't have to wait here. After I'm done, I'll come out of seclusion." Speaking to this point, Yi Xian paused and pondered for a while before saying, Fine. I'm not one to take advantage of others. I've just taken a look at your tribe's pill-making technique, so I can't just not do anything. Xiao. Before he finished, he suddenly waved his hand and 16 rays of light shot out from his palm towards the 16 emperors. After arriving in front of them, the light abruptly stopped and floated in the air in front of the 16 of them. Shockingly, it was the 8-colored divine medicine that Yi Xian had just refined on the spot. Each one of them had a circumference of 3,000 feet. Added together, they were like a small mountain. However, compared to the mountain-like amount that Yi Xian had just refined, it was nothing. See, these are 8-colored godly medicines? Master Xianyuan, these 8-colored godly medicines, are they for us? How can they be used? They're too precious. Yi Xian's actions caused the 16 emperors to be stunned. Soon after, expressions of wild joy appeared on their faces as they cried out involuntarily. Although they were all emperors, and there were even 4 emperors who were half-step emperors at the peak of Emperor level 9, and because the pill-making technique passed down in Emperor Xian's galaxy was almost complete, all of them could refine the light purple and gold flesh. Great medicine. In fact, after Yi Xian had bestowed him with a pure, transparent, undying flame, Zhao Dong had even refined a furnace of even better quality top-grade flesh and blood medicine with a dense purple-gold color on the spot. However, even this furnace of pure purple-gold top-grade flesh medicine could only be considered a treasure medicine at most. It was still a far cry from the multicolored divine medicine. And right now, what Yi Xian had given them wasn't a normal 3-colored or 4-colored medicine. Instead, it was a high-quality 8-colored medicine. Although each person was only given 1,000 cubic meters, and it might not be enough for them to directly break through, once they consumed it and refined it, their cultivation would greatly improve. It was a matter of fact that it was a done deal. Even to the point that other than the 4 half-step emperors, the other 8 who hadn't even reached the pinnacle emperor level could break through a small level because of this. It was no wonder they were so excited when they were caught off guard. Isn't it just 1,000 cubic meters of 8-colored medicine? Why are you so excited? Look at you guys. Yi Xian impatiently rolled his eyes when he saw the inexplicably excited expressions of the 16 emperors. He waved his hand, turned around, and walked into the imperial carriage. All right, go into seclusion and test the effects of these 8-colored divine medicines. If nothing goes wrong, there should be 6 or 7 of you who can break through a small level or 2. Chapter 4405. As the fog curtain of the demonic dragon carriage was lowered, the restriction was activated. Yi Xian immediately sat down in the front courtyard. After the restriction was activated, Yi Xian could still see the scene outside through the fog curtain. However, from the outside, not only could the naked eye not see through the fog curtain, but even the detection of divine consciousness would be recognized as an intruder. At that time, the 9 demonic dragons that had entered the space inside the carriage would immediately rush out and kill the intruder. As for the demonic dragon carriage, after being refined by Yi Xian again, its grade had been upgraded. It had turned from a treasure of the primordial era to a treasure of the primordial era. Its defense and attack power were extremely shocking. Even emperors would not be able to touch it. Therefore, although there were still 16 emperors of the Xian Emperor Starfield in the valley outside, Yi Xian did not take them seriously at all. He did not care at all. Temporarily stopped the derivation of the perfect formula for the level 25 pill. After sitting down, Yi Xian immediately gave a new order to the devouring system in his body. At the same time, immediately start a comprehensive derivation of the previous secret formula of the elixir refinement, as well as the complete secret formula of the Xian Emperor Starfield. Do your best to integrate it as soon as possible. Finally, the perfect secret formula of the elixir refinement. After giving the order, Yi Xian pondered for a while. Then he stood up and directly entered the space inside the carriage of the demonic dragon carriage. As soon as he entered, Ancestor Shur, Drought Demon, and the rest of the 7 primordial era beautiful cultivators surrounded him. Meanwhile, the elephant fox Martin on his shoulder leaped to the ground in front of him and looked up at Yi Xian eagerly. I've already obtained the complete secret formula of the Xian Emperor Starfield. You don't have to go out and show off in front of me for the time being. It's more important to improve your cultivation. After nodding, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand before he finished speaking. A total of 8 fine lights were shot out by him. In the blink of an eye, they stopped in the void in front of Drought Demon, the 7 primordial era cultivators, and the elephant fox Martin. They quietly hovered in the void. This was none other than the 8-colored divine medicine. It emitted a powerful energy aura that was dazzling. However, each of the 7 beauties had 10,000 cubic meters of divine herbs in front of them. Their cultivation had reached the perfection stage of the Ninth Order Emperor Realm, Half-Step Emperor Realm. With these 10,000 cubic meters of divine herbs, they might be able to break through to the Emperor Realm. As for the elephant fox ferret, Yixian only gave him 1,000 cubes. After all, his cultivation was still weak, so he wouldn't be able to use it for a while. Thank you, Master. 8-colored divine medicine. It's been a long time since I've tasted it. Let's hope that I can successfully recover my Emperor Realm cultivation this time. Master, we're going into seclusion. Seeing these 8-colored divine medicines, the 7 beautiful cultivators were pleasantly surprised. They immediately thanked Yixian with a smile and put away the 8-colored divine medicines. Then they turned around and left. The elephant fox ferret did the same. Their figures disappeared in the blink of an eye. All of them went into seclusion in the depths of the room and found a place to cultivate. Yixian didn't leave. He turned around and swept his gaze around. In the end, his figure flashed and he found a relatively wide valley nearby. He directly sat down cross-legged in the center of the valley. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In the next moment, as he waved his hand, a faint sound of something tearing through the air rang out one after another. Rays of light shot out one after another before finally stopping at a low altitude in front of Yixian. Shockingly, they were all top-notch cultivation resources that were rarely seen in the outside world. This included the all-evil origin liquid and several special resources that he had obtained in the primordial chaos void. As for the 8-colored divine medicine that he had just refined this time, he also took out a large amount of it. There were a total of 1,000 cubic meters. Finally, there was also the leg of a primordial almighty bird that he had roasted until it was golden yellow with the Shenong 8-colored flames. These cultivation resources were all prepared by Yixian for this breakthrough. They were shockingly valuable. Right now, he was already a martial monarch and every small breakthrough was extremely difficult. If it was anyone else, they would have wanted to use countless top-notch resources to forcefully push their cultivation up. But they wouldn't have been able to do so at this moment. All of the cultivation resources that he had prepared were compressed into a small ball by the power of the Shenong Cauldron's domain. Then as Yixian opened his mouth, it shot out, directly rushing into his mouth and down his throat very quickly. All of the cultivation resources that were swallowed into his body melted and quickly condensed into a majestic river of energy that began to circulate through the meridians in Yixian's body. After that, everything went on as usual. Under the control and guidance of Yixian's divine sense, this blazing river of energy quickly flowed through his limbs and bones according to the mysteries of the ancient Dongshu tactics, completing one great cycle after another. At the same time, a thick shackle chain appeared in Yixian's body. Because he was now a martial emperor, the shackle chain that appeared was incomparably thick and was obviously not easy to shake. However, this time, he had swallowed 1,000 cubic meters of 8-colored divine medicine and other top-grade cultivation resources. Yixian was still very confident in his breakthrough. In the end, it was impossible to say how many cycles had been completed. After the river of energy was completely refined, Yixian didn't hesitate at all. He immediately activated the true essence river in his meridians and fiercely collided with the incomparably thick shackles. Go! Clang! There was no suspense. After the sound of metal colliding, the shackle chain broke. The next moment, the familiar system notification sounded in his mind again. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through to the next level of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current level. 2nd level Emperor Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through to the next level of the physical body. Current level. 2nd level Emperor Immortal. 2nd level Emperor Immortal. Not long ago, when Yixian had just broken through to the 7th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations bloodline ability, he would have reached the pinnacle of the 9th level Emperor Immortal. This time, following his breakthrough in cultivation, if Yixian were to activate the Devil Ape's bloodline and not use the 9 transformations of the Devil Ape, his cultivation would reach the 3rd level of the Immortal Emperor Realm. This was already the beginning of the Emperor Realm, the pinnacle of the Emperor Realm. And if he directly entered the 7th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations, his pinnacle battle power would rise again, surpassing the Emperor Realm and reaching the 1st level of the Universe Knight. And in the 7th transformation state, due to the 100 million Zhongtal demonic ape true body, The blood energy in his body would be so majestic that it would make one's hair stand on end. Therefore, in that state, if Yixian were to encounter an ordinary level 1 universe sovereign, he would be able to crush them. Even a level 2 universe sovereign would be able to fight against him. Universe Knight, Universe Master, Universe Supreme, Primordial Supreme, and Primordial Supreme. These were the last 5 levels of cultivation. Chapter 4406. Second Level Emperor. After entering the 7th transformation of the 9 Devil Ape Transformation Bloodline Technique, Yixian's cultivation level finally touched the last 5 realms. He now had the terrifying power of a first-level Universe Knight. This made him heave a sigh of relief. Although there were as many emperors as there were dogs in the Hongmeng Void, there were only 2 or 3 Universe Knights or Universe Masters guarding the most powerful Forbidden Lands. With Yixian's previous power, under the 7 Devil Ape Transformation, he only had the power of a late-stage emperor. In the Hongmeng Void and the surrounding areas of the Milky Way star field, he could only tread carefully with his tail between his legs. But now, he could at least touch the level of a Universe Knight, and his confidence was obviously not the same as before. If he met a Universe Master, he would have nothing to say and run away immediately. But if he only alarmed a Universe Knight, he might be able to fight. Opening his eyes, Yixian calculated the time. Only then did he realize that more than 10 days had passed. This time he had broken through for quite some time. After all, he was already at the titled Emperor realm, which was far different from before. It seemed that in the future, the stronger he was, the longer it would take to break through. Even if it was only a small level, it could easily take months, or even years. Thinking of this, Yixian couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. Just as he was sighing, a familiar system notification sounded in his mind. The system's calculation was completed. In the past 10 days or so, the devouring system within Yixian's body had done its best to calculate and integrate the secret refining method that Yixian had originally grasped with the secret refining method that he just obtained from the remnant tribes of the Shenhuang star region. In the end, he deduced an even more perfect refinement method. Previously, although Yixian had obtained the refining technique of the Shen Emperor starfield, and claimed to be the complete version, the system was too huge, and the various branches were too complicated. If he wanted to study it carefully, even with the help of the devouring system in his body, it would take a lot of time. Force assistance. He would need a very long time to fully grasp it. But now the system had deduced and integrated a brand new alchemy method. Not only was it more concise, it was more perfect, and its power was much stronger. Yixian immersed his mind and spirit in it. In just one day he had completely understood and mastered it. This is a truly perfect secret technique. Opening his eyes, Yixian's eyes flashed with a bright light. His tone was filled with excitement as he subconsciously clenched his fists. With a brand new secret technique, the effects of refining the flesh and blood medicine will definitely be even better. This way, it will be beneficial to his future cultivation strength. His improvement is of great significance. Now that this matter is over, it's time to leave. At this point, Yixian no longer hesitated. He stood up and rushed out of the room. His figure appeared in the front courtyard of the demon dragon's carriage. With a wave of his hand, the curtain formed by the dense fog opened. He stepped out of the carriage and appeared outside. The void on the other side. The valley was quiet. Perhaps it was because the invisible pressure emitted by the demon dragon was too strong. But the experts inside this star did not dare to get too close to it. They did not even dare to enter the valley. As for the 16 emperors from the Shen Emperor starfield, most of them were still in closed-door training. It was rare for them to encounter such a rare 8-colored god medicine. Naturally, they were excited and couldn't help but want to enter closed-door training to test it out. Human effects. Seeing this, Yixian let out a sigh of relief. He immediately turned and returned to the demon dragon's carriage and left. This Shen Emperor star region was the gathering place of the survivors of the primordial era. As for the fierce beast flesh and blood that Yixian needed to refine the flesh and blood medicine, as well as the fierce beast blood essence needed to refine the various levels of precious medicines, they all needed to be obtained from the fierce beasts of space. Although there were quite a few ferocious beasts in the Shen Emperor star region, on the one hand, these ferocious beasts were all half raised by the remnants of the primordial era in the Shen Emperor star region. Yixian had just obtained the complete secret alchemy technique passed down by the tribe, so it was really not good for him to deal with them anymore. Beasts. On the other hand, his current cultivation level was getting higher and higher. The blood and essence of the beasts he needed were at least king level. Even though there were many beasts in the Xian Emperor starfield, there were many king-level beasts. However, if a strong warrior like Yi Xian was allowed to kill as he pleased, they would all be wiped out in no time. This was also a little too cruel. Hence he could only choose to leave. What's more, his original goal in entering the Xian Emperor starfield was to obtain the alchemy method from the ancient survivors. Now that he had achieved his goal, what was there to stay? Young Master Xian Yuan. Just as Yi Xian turned and was about to enter the demon dragon's carriage, a familiar voice sounded from the right. Turning around, Emperor Shi and the rest of the upper echelons of the demon race were flying over. Behind them, there were other upper echelons of the demon race who were rushing in different directions. From the looks of it, they seemed to be calling for help. Yi Xian frowned as he didn't understand what was going on. However, he stopped and turned around to look at Emperor and the rest. He didn't say anything and waited for Emperor to continue. This old man was quite crazy in the past. Even though they were old acquaintances, Yi Xian and Emperor had always been enemies. Hence, even though they met in this void fragment of the wilderness, they didn't feel like they had met an old friend in a foreign land. Young Master Xian Yuan, the Doyens have instructed us to inform them as soon as you come out of seclusion. When they arrived in front of Yi Xian, the group of upper echelons of the demon race stopped a few hundred meters away. Patriarch Emperor had a vigilant expression, but his expression was very respectful. He cupped his fists and explained the reason to Yi Xian. Now, someone has already gone to inform the Doyens. Young Master Xian Yuan, please wait for a while. If there are no accidents, they should be here soon. The Doyens he was talking about were obviously Zhao Dong and the rest of the 16 emperors. In Emperor Xian's starfield, the leaders of the various tribes had formed a Doyens association. Those who could enter the Doyens association and become one of the Doyens in the starfield were all emperors. Hearing Emperor's words, Yi Xian was speechless. It seemed that it wouldn't be good for him to leave so soon. After all, he had just obtained the secret medicine refinement technique from the other tribe. Even though Zhao Dong and the rest didn't have the ability to force Yi Xian to stay, Yi Xian couldn't do that. Luckily, there wasn't any other urgent matter. After giving them some instructions, he could just leave. Thinking of this, he nodded and didn't say anything else. He didn't enter the demonic dragon carriage and just stayed in the valley for the time being. After half an incense stick's worth of time, the sound of space breaking could be heard from all around the valley. Zhao Dong and the rest of the 16 emperors appeared one after another. Chapter 4407. Not only do I have some experience and comprehension, but I have fully comprehended it and made some improvements. Now my medicine refining technique is truly perfect. Yi Xian nodded. He didn't intend to hide anything and told them the truth. However, Zhao Dong and the others clearly did not believe this. They looked at each other and exchanged glances, but their expressions were all somewhat strange. Yi Xian was speechless. He rolled his eyes. Fine. Since you don't believe me, I'll refine another batch of 8-colored godly medicine for you to see. Then, without waiting for Zhao Dong and the others to respond, he waved his hand. Xiao xiao xiao. In the next moment, with a thought from him, Yi Xian directly took out the remains of 108 primordial creatures from the sealed cave at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the cauldron. At the same time, there were also a large number of top-grade precious materials and medicines. As for the spring water used to refine medicine, it was just as extravagant this time. He used a mixture of innate cold liquid and dark furnace lotion to replace it. Rumble. Rumble, xiao. Just as the 16 emperors were stunned by what they saw, Yi Xian waved his hand again. Rumbling noises echoed. An energy cauldron made of the Shenong 8-colored flame rose from the flame pool. Shi Yan pulled it out of the Shenong cauldron and took it out. It floated in the air in front of the valley. After that, the sound of air breaking could be heard. All the materials floating in the air automatically flew into the huge cauldron, made of Shenong 8-colored flames. They melted and mixed together in the blink of an eye. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. Before they could recover from their shock, the dense sound of something breaking through the void rang out again. As Yi Xian's hands fluttered like butterflies, obscure runes of different colors and shapes fell from his hands like rain. directly entering the 8-colored cauldron in the form of energy. Their might could be said to cover the heavens and the earth. They were densely packed, and their numbers were so great that it made one's hair stand on end. All the obscure runes were the perfect medicine concocting formula that Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged in the void, had just mastered. At this moment, as they fell into the 8-colored cauldron, this cauldron of top-grade flesh medicine was completely refined. It was so fast that time was almost negligible. This time Yi Xian even used the pure Shenong 8-colored flame to refine the great medicine. In terms of the flesh and blood materials used, it was still the same as last time. The lowest level was at the titled Emperor realm, and nearly half of them were at the quasi-desolate ancient realm. Now that the great medicine was successfully refined, countless auspicious phenomena of dragons and tigers leaping appeared in the void. Zhongcheng appeared. Ing! Roar! For a moment, the phantoms of the true dragon and true phoenix all rushed out of the cauldron, stretching their necks and roaring. Boom! Almost in the next instant, a huge roar sounded, and the 8-colored cauldron in the void ahead bloomed with boundless treasure light. In an instant, it turned into specks of 8-colored light and was collected by Yi Xian with a wave of his hand, throwing into the flame pool of the Shenong cauldron domain volcano in his body. This cauldron of top-grade flesh medicine was finally completed. At this moment, as the 8-colored flame cauldron disappeared, there was only a large pot of 8-colored top-grade flesh medicine left in the void ahead of him. Its 8-colored light was so dense that it couldn't be dissolved. Compared to the 8-colored godly medicine that Yi Xian had refined earlier, its grade was half a level higher. Although it hadn't reached the level of 9-colored godly medicine, it was definitely at the peak of 8-colored godly medicine. The medicinal effect of this cauldron of 8-colored divine medicine was clearly stronger than before. As for its size, it was also like a huge mountain peak, incomparably huge. It also emitted a dense energy aura, making it impossible to look at. Following this scene, the 16 emperors who were watching from afar opened their eyes wide, their breathing rapid, and their eyes were filled with disbelief and shock. Exclamations could be heard at this moment. Peak of 8-colored. This is definitely the peak of 8-colored godly medicine, just a hair's breadth away from the level of 9-colored godly medicine. This is simply unbelievable. He clearly used 8-colored godly flames, but the flesh medicine that was refined almost reached the level of 9-colored godly medicine. This is simply shocking. Even in legends, it has never appeared before. This refinement, young Master Xian Yuan used the same flames and materials as before, but the medicinal formula used during the refinement was different. The final quality of the flesh medicine that was refined was much higher than before, and it was half a level higher. This can only mean one thing. There is a problem. That's young Master Xuanyuan's attainments in the refinement of flesh and blood medicine. Compared to a dozen days ago, there's already a world of difference. Could it be that he really comprehended the refinement technique of our Emperor Xian Galaxy and even perfected it? What kind of talent is this? This is too shocking. Is this a perfect level refinement technique? If we can master it, doesn't it mean that, even if we only use the pure, transparent, undying flame, we can refine godly medicine that surpasses treasured medicine? Even if it's just 1-colored godly medicine. Young Master Xian Yuan, please don't be stingy. We will be eternally grateful. Xiao. Xiao xiao xiao. Without waiting for the 16 emperors to finish speaking, Yi Xian lightly smiled. He raised his hand and pointed towards them from afar. As he pointed, 16 finger-sized weak lights shot towards Zhao Dong and the others. In the blink of an eye, they entered their foreheads and vanished. The information within these 16 rays of light was the most perfect version that Yi Xian had managed to deduce with the help of the devouring system in his body, the secret alchemy technique that he'd already mastered, and the complete secret alchemy technique that was passed down in the Xianhuang star region. It was simpler and more direct, and its effects were stronger too. At this moment, as the 16 lights shot towards them and entered their foreheads, Zhao Dong and the others were stunned for a moment before revealing expressions of glee. The 16 emperors all closed their eyes and began to study. Previously, Yi Xian had spent an entire day comprehending the perfect secret alchemy technique that the system had deduced. However, for Zhao Dong and the others, it was obvious that they didn't need that long. This perfect version was basically based on the complete refinement technique of the Emperor Xian Galaxy, with only a few improvements and additions. Yixian didn't understand the complete secret alchemy technique, passed down in the Xian Emperor Star region, so it took him so long to comprehend it. However, Zhao Dong and the others who already knew the complete secret alchemy technique had an easier time learning it than him. The speed of comprehending this perfect version was also much faster. Chapter 4408. After they finished comprehending the perfect version, a light flashed in the eyes of Zhao Dong and the others. Their breathing immediately quickened, and their faces were filled with excitement. The four of them exchanged glances and didn't hesitate any longer. At the same time, they cupped their hands towards Yixian and bowed. It was a big gesture. The words that came out of his mouth were also filled with boundless gratitude. I didn't expect young Master Xianyuan to be so talented in alchemy. We were too impulsive and disrespectful. Please forgive us. That's right. We did have some doubts about young Master Xianyuan's alchemy ability. However, it seems ridiculous now. You should know that the secret method of alchemy in Emperor Xian Galaxy has been passed down for countless years. It has been perfected many times. Even we think that it is perfect. I didn't expect young Master Xianyuan to make such significant changes and improvements in just a few days. I'm impressed. More importantly, after young Master Xianyuan's improvements, the secret method of alchemy is the perfect version. It means a lot to the survivors of Emperor Xian Galaxy. Previously, we were already wild with joy when we were able to refine a light purple and golden flesh medicine that was only in the category of precious medicine. But now, this old man is confident that he can also refine a true divine medicine. Zhao Dong turned and exchanged glances with the other 15 people. Then he cupped his hands to Yixian again and said, "Young Master Xianyuan, please take a look." Whoosh! Rumble! As soon as he finished speaking, Zhao Dong no longer hesitated. His figure flashed, and in the blink of an eye, he was in the void not far from his right. He sat down cross-legged and waved his hand. A huge cauldron appeared in his hand. It was huge and looked like a giant mountain. It exuded an ancient aura. It was the same cauldron that he had used to refine the flesh medicine. At this moment, as the huge cauldron soared into the sky, the sound of thunder could be heard from it. In the next moment, with a thought from Zhao Dong, the lid of the cauldron immediately opened. With a wave of his hand, a large number of top-grade precious herbs and materials from fierce beasts were taken out by him and flew directly into the cauldron. This time, the materials that Zhao Dong took out were also taken from starry sky ferocious beasts that were above the immortal realm. However, most of them were titled emperors and titled marquises. The most powerful ones were only titled emperors, and there were very few of them. Most of them were titled emperors. It was the same material that he had used to refine the last time. This was clearly done on purpose. Soon after all the refining materials were put into the cauldron, Zhao Dong waved his hand and closed the lid of the cauldron. He made a gesture in his hand, and a pure and transparent eternal void flame with a radius of 100 meters shot out. The transparent imperishable flame quickly shot through the wall of the cauldron and rushed into the cauldron. Then Zhao Dong's hands began to change rapidly. Complicated alchemy hand seals danced between his fingers, and as these hand seals were formed, streaks of light of different colors also flew out from his fingertips, rushed forward, and entered the treasure cauldron. But this time, the alchemy hand seals he used were different from before. Previously, he used the complete alchemy secret method passed down in Emperor Xian Galaxy. But this time, he used the perfect alchemy method that he had just obtained from Yixian. Because the flame that Zhao Dong used to refine the flesh medicine this time was the best quality transparent imperishable flame that he had never obtained before. In addition, the alchemy secret method had reached perfection. Therefore, this time's refining process was much smoother than before. Everything could be described as a matter of course. After half a day, Zhao Dong's eyes flashed. He waved his hand and directly took out the remaining transparent imperishable flame from the treasure cauldron, and carefully put it away. Then he opened the lid of the giant cauldron, immersed his divine thought in, and took out the flesh medicine that had already been refined in the cauldron. Swish! With a whistling sound, the treasure cauldron was put away by Zhao Dong. What was left in the void in front of him was a fleshy medicine with a radius of 1,000 meters. Last time, the flesh medicine that Zhao Dong refined was a faint purple gold color. Once it entered the purple gold color, it was considered to have reached the category of treasure medicine. Even this kind of flesh medicine, Zhao Dong had never refined it before, so that time he could be said to be wild with joy. At this moment, as the fleshy medicine with a radius of 1,000 meters came out of the cauldron, Zhao Dong's face did not show the slightest hint of joy, but was extremely calm. But this did not mean that the quality of the flesh medicine he refined this time was inferior to the previous one. In fact, it was the opposite. If what Zhao Dong had refined last time was a faint purplish gold treasured flesh medicine, then this time what Zhao Dong had refined was a divine flesh medicine of a higher grade that surpassed the treasured medicine category. But it was only a divine medicine of one color. This so-called one color was a transparent color that almost did not exist. This was because the top-grade heavenly flame that Zhao Dong used to refine this fleshy medicine was a pure transparent imperishable flame. The flesh medicine was divided into 3 major levels: ordinary great medicines, flesh and blood treasured medicines, as well as flesh and blood divine medicines. The peak of ordinary great medicine was a rich gold color. Flesh treasured medicines were purplish gold in color. Light purplish gold was normal grade, while dense, pure purplish gold was pinnacle grade treasured medicines. As for flesh medicine, it was divided into many levels, a total of 9. If there was only one color, it was a one-color divine medicine. If there were 2 colors, it was a 2-color divine medicine. And so on. The best quality divine medicine was a 9-color divine medicine. The refinement of flesh medicine was influenced by many factors, but there was one condition that must be met, and that was that the flame used to refine it must be a top-grade heavenly flame. But it did not mean that using a top-grade heavenly flame to refine a flesh medicine would definitely produce a real flesh medicine, even if it was only a one-color divine medicine. The top-grade heavenly flame was only a prerequisite, but there were many other requirements, such as the refinement material must not be too bad, and the secret refinement method must not have too many flaws, and so on. Previously, Zhao Dong already had the pure transparent imperishable flame, which could be considered a top-grade heavenly flame, and the materials used to refine the flesh medicine were passable. But the reason why he did not refine a real flesh medicine was only a faint purple gold color. It was a treasured flesh medicine, and an ordinary one at that. The reason was that the so-called complete secret refinement method passed down in the Emperor Xianhuang galaxy did indeed have many deficiencies and flaws. But now, these deficiencies and flaws had been made up and perfected by Yi Xian with the help of the devouring system in his body. That was why the scene before them had appeared at this moment. As Zhao Dong successfully refined a furnace of one-colored flesh and blood divine medicine in front of everyone, the entire Spirit Chi Valley fell into a dead silence in an instant. Chapter 4409. With a whoosh, the cauldron of one-colored godly medicine was successfully refined. Whether it was Qian Nan and the other 15 Undyings, or the Yin Emperor Yin Qi, and the other upper echelons of the Yin Demon clan, it was as if they had made an agreement. Everyone turned their heads to look at Yi Xian. They held their breaths, widened their eyes, and blushed. Immediately after that, with Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the other 3 emperors at the peak of the 9th stage, the 16 emperors from the Xian Emperor Starfield all knelt down on one knee. They cupped their fists at Yi Xian, and they were extremely emotional. Their words were filled with expectation and sincerity. Young Master Xinyuan has helped us to perfect the medicine refinement technique passed down in our tribe. This is the grace of a new lease on life. That's right. We never expected to be able to refine flesh godly medicine one day, but today all of this has come true because of young Master Xinyuan. When it comes to cultivation, we can't compare to young Master Xinyuan, and we have nothing to repay you with. We can only follow you and be at your beck and call. Young Master Xinyuan, we are willing to follow you. The last sentence was shouted out by Zhao Dong and the rest of the 16 people at the same time. After they finished speaking, they cupped their fists and knelt on one knee. They eagerly looked at Yi Xian and waited for his response. Seeing this, not only was Yi Xian dumbfounded, but even Yin Emperor Yin Qi and the other higher-ups of the Yin Demon clan, who were standing behind Zhao Dong and the others, were shocked. Yin Emperor Yin Qi and the others were also incomparably shocked by Zhao Dong's sudden and smooth refinement of a cauldron of divine medicine. However, the reason why they were the same as Zhao Dong and the other 16 Undying Emperors was because they turned to look at Yi Xian at the same time. It was just a subconscious action. However, now that they saw Zhao Dong and the others kneel on one knee and pledge their allegiance to him, Yin Emperor Yin Qi, and the others were indeed very surprised. These were 16 powerful emperors, and 4 of them had even reached the peak of the 9th stage of the emperor level, which was equivalent to a half-emperor. One more step and they would become titled emperors. However, at this time they all knelt down at the same time and pledged their allegiance. This was simply too shocking. After being stunned for a short while, Ein Emperor and the rest of the Ein Demon clan's higher-ups exchanged glances and instantly reached a consensus. Without hesitation they followed Zhao Dong's lead and knelt down on one knee with cupped fists. Although no words came out of their mouths, there was no doubt what they meant. Looking at the figures kneeling in front of him, Yi Xian was momentarily stunned. In an instant he fell into a dilemma. It was impossible for him to remain unmoved when Zhao Dong and the others represented the entire Xian Emperor starfield in surrendering to him. Of them on the other of them 4 emperors and 4 on the other hand were half-emperors, and of them 4 of them were half-emperors and would be emperors. Of them would be emperors. Of them would be able would be half-emperors. Of them could be emperors. Were emperors level. And they would be. Were half-emperors. Were. At that time, Yi Xian would undoubtedly have 4 more emperors under his command. Moreover, judging from the expressions and words of Zhao Dong and the others, they were clearly sincere. Otherwise, they wouldn't have taken the initiative to ask Yi Xian to take them in. This was different from the ferocious beast powerhouses that Yi Xian had forcibly subdued by force when he swept through the starry sky forbidden lands. There was basically no need to worry about their loyalty. Basically, the overall strength of the Emperor Xinyuan Emperor Star region was actually above the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. In fact, it wasn't just a little bit stronger but a lot stronger. If he could take this powerful force under his command and bring them to the forbidden land of Rising Sun to guard it, then the black hole entrance to the primordial void would be even safer. Before Yi Xian left the forbidden land of Rising Sun this time, he had used the method of bestowing some emperor-level pellets to forcibly elevate the ferocious beast kings who were at the peak of the 9th stage of the emperor level. However, they were only first-stage emperors after all, and their cultivation was still too weak. If they were to encounter a mid-stage or late-stage emperor, they wouldn't be a match at all. That person could single-handedly overturn the entire forbidden land of Rising Sunday. However, if the survivors of the Emperor Xianyuan Emperor Star region were to join them, this problem would no longer exist. Yi Xian could leave the forbidden land of Rising Sun without any worries. Whether it was to enter the primordial void or travel in the starry sky of the primordial void fragment. He might as well temporarily return to the 3 main starry skies of the modern realm and make other arrangements. When that time comes, he wouldn't have to worry about the black hole vortex leading to the primordial void being occupied by other forces. Of course, in the primordial void fragment, the survivors of the primordial void and the ferocious beasts had always been at odds with each other. Since ancient times they had always been at odds with each other. It would be a headache to have the countless ferocious beasts of the forbidden land of Rising Sun and the primordial survivors of the Emperor Xianyuan Emperor Star region live in peace in the starry sky of the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. However, it wasn't impossible to solve this problem. Yi Xian was quite confident about this. It could be said that Yi Xian was very tempted to take in all the primordial survivors of the Emperor Xianyuan Emperor Star region as his subordinates. However, if he wanted to complete this task, he would first have to tell them the truth and sound out Zhao Dong and the other 16 people's opinions. If this matter couldn't be done, then he would have to give up on it. It would save him the trouble of bringing them to the forbidden land of Rising Sun, and then turning against each other. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian organized his words. After a short moment of silence, he sighed faintly and said, "If you want me to take you in as my subordinates, it's not impossible. However, if you want to follow me, you can't stay in the Emperor Xianyuan Emperor Star region. I'm afraid all the survivors and powerhouses here will have to migrate en masse and follow me to a new place to live. If that's the case, you'll have to bear the pain of rearing ferocious beasts on the star regions of the Emperor Xianyuan Emperor Star region. You'll have to kill all the ferocious beasts that are used to refine pills and blood materials. You can't possibly migrate en masse and bring a large number of ferocious beasts with you, right? I'm afraid you won't be able to fulfill these requirements. Moreover, this isn't the end of it. It's not even the most important thing. The most important thing is that if you want to follow me, all of you, and all of you including the countless survivors of the Emperor Xian Starfield, will have to try and get used to living peacefully with the ferocious beasts of the universe or even get along well with them." At this point, Yi Xian spread his hands and a helpless expression appeared on his face. Take note, when I say living in harmony, I don't mean trapping the ferocious beasts on the star regions of the Emperor Xianyuan Emperor Star Region. Chapter 44:10. After hearing what Yi Xian had to say, Zhao Dong and the other emperors from the Xian Emperor Starfield looked at each other in confusion as they asked one after another, Young Master Xianyuan, since we've decided to follow you, we naturally can't stay in the Xian Emperor Starfield any longer. It's only right that we lead our people to migrate. That's right. Young Master comes from the mysterious primordial void. To us, the ancestral planet of the Milky Way galaxy Starfield is most likely the birthplace of our bloodline. Now that we've returned to our ancestral land with Young Master, it's a joyous occasion. Since we're leaving, we'll naturally have to kill all the space beasts we've raised in the ferocious beast star field. We'll collect the useful flesh and blood materials so that we can use them to refine the great flesh medicine in the future. There's no problem with that, but what does Young Master mean by coexisting peacefully with the ferocious beasts and fighting side by side? This clearly conflicts with what Young Master said before, and we're all confused. Fine. I'll be frank with you? Yi Xian shook his head and sighed before continuing. Do you know about the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun? Zhao Dong and the others were stunned when he mentioned the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, but they soon nodded one after another. In this galaxy that was billions of miles away, the only large-scale Forbidden Land of the Xian Emperor Starfield was the Xian Emperor Starfield. And the only large-scale Forbidden Land of Rising Sun was the Forbidden Land of Rising Sunday. Although the two were separated by a great distance, they obviously knew of each other's existence. Xiao. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian took out a level 24 Emperor treasure pill from his body and held it in his palm. After that, he continued, Not long ago, I went to the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun and killed all 8 ferocious beast emperors there to refine 2 Emperor treasure pills. I swallowed one and broke through to the Emperor level. The other one is the one in my hand. However, the refinement of the Emperor's treasure pellet requires the physical qi and blood of a feral king, whereas the Emperor's treasure pellet requires the physical qi and blood of a feral king. I don't need the Emperor's treasure pellet, and that's why everyone in the Forbidden Land of Rising Star, the King of Ferals, was never slain. After that, they sincerely surrendered. I was soft-hearted for a moment and helped them refine some level 23 Emperor pellets that could help them break through to the Emperor realm. I forcibly created a few feral emperors and had them guard the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun to look after it for me. The entrance to the primordial void. Do you understand now? If you follow me, I will definitely bring you to the Rising Dawn Forbidden Land and guard the entrance to the primordial void with the beasts there. In the future, when the time is right, we will enter the primordial void in one go. In that case, if you can't coexist peacefully with the cosmic ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun and fight side by side, wouldn't I be asking for trouble? Hearing this, Zhao Dong and the others came to a realization. They all looked at the level 24 Emperor's treasure pellet in Yi Xian's hand. Their eyes shone brightly as they cried out involuntarily. What a dense Emperor Realm aura. Once this pellet is swallowed, it will definitely help a peak-level Emperor Realm Great Perfection 9th stage smoothly break through in a short time. A level 24 Emperor's treasure pellet? A level 23 Emperor's treasure pellet? Heavens, Young Master Xianyuan can actually refine such a miraculous pellet. Doesn't that mean, from now on, the path of cultivation will no longer have to worry about the shackles and bottlenecks of major realms? That's right. Once you reach the peak level Great Perfection 9th stage, you can break through in an instant by swallowing a pellet of the same level. Don't worry, Young Master Xianyuan. We will definitely be able to coexist peacefully with the ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sunday. We will fight side by side and guard the entrance to the primordial void for Young Master. We only hope that if Young Master has the materials in the future, you can help us refine 1 Emperor's treasure pellet each. After the last sentence, the 16 emperors went silent. However, their eyes gleamed as they stared at Yi Xian, as though they were afraid he would reject them on the spot. If you all become my subordinates, I will naturally provide you with the various grades of pellets. However, I only have 1 Emperor's treasure pellet right now, and 4 of you have already reached the peak level Great Perfection 9th stage. It's not good to favor one over the other. Nodding, Yi Xian's expression was solemn as he said without hesitation, Let's wait until we have 4 Emperor's treasure pellets before giving them out together. In truth, He had a total of 4 Emperor's Treasure pellets. However, he couldn't give them out so easily, hence why he said that. Other than the Emperor's Treasure pellet, I can also refine the Emperor's Treasure pellet, Emperor's Treasure pellet, Lord's Treasure pellet and Undying's Treasure pellet. Apart from all of you, all the remnant experts in the entire Xianhuang starfield will be able to obtain the corresponding level of elixir pills after they become my subordinates and reach a certain level of cultivation. Of course, this requires accumulating battle merits or collecting the ferocious beast's vital energy and blood materials needed to refine the pellets. Then I will refine the pellets every once in a while. Then what are we waiting for? Hearing this, Zhao Dong and the others immediately became excited. After exchanging glances, they immediately got up and clasped their fists at Yi Xian. Young Master Xian Yuan, please wait for a few more days. We will immediately send out the order to the entire Emperor Xian starfield. All the Emperor Xian starfield's troops will be mobilized to slaughter all the ferocious beasts in the starfield. That's right. We are determined to follow young master. Other than dealing with the ferocious beasts, we will also need some time to gather the various resources in the Emperor Xian starfield and bring them all away. In several large ferocious beast stars, there are still a few ferocious beast emperors who have broken through to the Emperor realm in the past 100 years. After killing them, we will collect their vital energy and blood and hand them over to young master for safekeeping. In the future, we will use them to refine the Emperor's Treasure pellet. After that, Zhao Dong and the others no longer hesitated. After seeing Yi Xian pondering for a while, they finally nodded. This clearly meant that he had approved of their request to surrender. In great joy, they immediately soared into the sky. After rushing out of the atmosphere of this life star, they scattered in the blink of an eye. Roar! Screech! Rumble! Soon in the vast void of the Emperor Xian starfield outside the star, the roars of the ferocious beasts and the roars of the Emperor Xian starfield had been heard one after another, accompanied by the rumbling sounds of battle. At first it was only sporadic, but soon it became noisy everywhere. All kinds of rumbling thunder and explosions were like a tide, surging in overwhelmingly. Obviously, with the departure of Zhao Dong and the others, the entire vast Emperor Xian starfield had been fully mobilized. Countless powerhouses in the Emperor Xian starfield had moved out in full force, driving battleships and rushing to the surrounding ferocious beast stars. Chapter 44:11. According to Yi Xian's calculations, it would take at least a month for the remnant tribes in the Emperor Xian star domain to be completely reorganized. After all, it was not just about reorganizing the tribe, but also killing all the ferocious beasts in the entire star domain. The entire Emperor Xian star domain was so vast that it would obviously take time. Yi Xian could not just wait here. After pondering for a while, he immediately turned around and entered the demonic dragon carriage. He once again entered the space within the carriage and returned to the small valley where he had been in seclusion before. Although he had just experienced a breakthrough, he had a huge amount of top-grade resources in his hands, especially the 8-colored divine medicine that he had just refined. Its medicinal effect had already reached the peak of the 8-colored divine medicine, and was only a step away from becoming a 9-colored divine medicine. A step away. With the help of a huge amount of top-grade cultivation resources, it should not be too difficult for him to forcefully break through a small level again. 1 month should be enough. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. After entering the valley, Yi Xian immediately sat down cross-legged in the central area. In the next instant, a cold light flashed in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, a large amount of faint air-breaking sounds could be heard. All kinds of top-grade cultivation resources were taken out from the undying world in his body one after another. Among them were the 8-colored divine medicine that he had just refined, the all-evil origin liquid, and all kinds of rare top-grade precious materials and medicines. Among the breakthrough resources he had prepared this time, there was also a large piece of quasi-desolation almighty prehistoric creatures' precious blood and flesh. It had been roasted into a golden color by the Shenong 7-colored flames, and was overflowing with oil. With a thought, the Shenong cauldron's domain in his body was fully activated. All the cultivation resources in front of him were crushed by the power of the cauldron's domain, and turned into small round beads in the blink of an eye. Yi Xian opened his mouth and swallowed them into his stomach. Soon they turned into a warm current that flowed down his throat and rushed to his limbs and bones. Whoosh 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 boom. Almost in the next instant, shackles appeared out of nowhere. From this moment on, Yixian's body seemed to have been turned upside down. The loud rattling sounds of the shackles did not stop for even a second. The blazing river of energy that had just formed flowed through the hundreds of meridians in his body, constantly shaking the newly formed shackles. Perhaps it was because he had just completed a breakthrough, but this time when Yixian circulated the huge river of energy in his body that was formed from a sea of top-notch cultivation resources, it was extremely difficult for him to attack this new shackle that had just appeared. Furthermore, with each impact, the pain in his body would become even more intense. However, he didn't give up because of this, and he gradually calmed down his slightly restless mind. Subsequently, Yixian followed the ancient cave void tactics cultivation method route, and his divine sense carried the surging and majestic river of energy in his body, circulating repeatedly in his meridians. During this process, while refining this huge river of energy, he was also trying his best to accumulate as much energy as he could to attack the shackles once again. Time passed slowly. After an unknown amount of time, when this huge river of energy was completely refined and disappeared in Yixian's meridians, the true yuan in his body was obviously stronger than before. Without any hesitation, Yixian pushed his divine sense to the extreme and immediately launched a new round of attack. Clang! Along with the sound of metal clashing, the shackles that had appeared in his body were broken. Almost in the next instant, the familiar system notification sounded in his mind again. Ding! Congratulations to the host for a breakthrough in the ancient cave void tactics. Current level. Level 3 Emperor Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to the host for a breakthrough in the Qi and Blood Body. Current level. Level 3 Emperor Immortal. Level 3 Emperor Immortal. Not long ago, when Yixian had just completed his breakthrough, if he had unleashed the bloodline ability of the 9 demonic ape transformations to the 7th transformation, he would have instantly reached the pinnacle battle power of a level 1 universe knight. Now that he had another breakthrough, if he were to activate the demon ape bloodline and not use the 9 demon ape transformations, his strength would reach the level of a level 4 Emperor Immortal, stepping into the middle stage of the Emperor realm. And if he were to enter the 7th transformation, his pinnacle battle power would rise again, reaching level 2 Universe Knight. And in the 7th transformation, the huge body of the 9 demonic ape would have a terrifying amount of qi and blood energy, which would increase his battle power by quite a bit. Therefore, in that state, Yixian wouldn't even be afraid of a 3rd order venerable. He would be able to fight a 4th order venerable. At his peak, he already has the ability to fight against a 3rd order venerable. He can even win against a 4th order venerable. Opening his eyes, Yixian's eyes instantly flashed with a bright light. He subconsciously clenched his fists, and for a moment, he was filled with pride. In that case, it's time to return to the primordial chaos void. This time, after bringing the tribe of the Xian Emperor Starfield back to the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, I'll immediately enter the Hongmeng Starfield and wait for the chance to kill the emperors. I'll have to figure out the perfect formula for the level 25 treasure pill to break through to the Universe Knight level soon. In that case, it is imperative that we hunt down the martial emperors and prepare for the refinement of the level 25 pellet. After he finished speaking, Yixian immediately stood up and checked the time. This time he had actually spent 28 days in closed-door cultivation. If nothing unexpected happened, the remnant tribes of the Xian Emperor Star region should have already finished their preparations and could set off immediately. Thinking about this, Yixian didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately left the room and walked out of the demon dragon carriage. As expected, he looked up and saw Zhao Dong and the other emperors of the Xian Emperor Starfield waiting in the valley outside. Master Xian Yuan, all the great beings of the Xian Emperor Starfield have finished their preparations. This time, we've obtained a large amount of qi and blood energy balls condensed from the bodies of the space beasts. They've all been stored in this storage treasure. Please accept them first, young master. When you're free, please make a batch of different level treasure pills for us. As for the great beings of the Xian Emperor Starfield and the resources like the battleships, they've all been stored in our respective storage treasures. The entire Xian Emperor Starfield is empty, and only the 16 of us are left. If young master doesn't have any other matters, we can set off immediately. In other words, it was obvious that they were going to travel with Yixian to the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. You can enter the demon dragon carriage first. Just wait in the front yard of the carriage. As for returning to the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, I'll take care of it. Yixian didn't explain too much. After that, he immediately urged them to enter the demon dragon carriage. Zhao Dong and the other 16 exchanged glances. They didn't ask too much and immediately entered the carriage. However, they only stayed in the front yard and didn't dare to enter the space of the carriage. Chapter 44:12. Whoosh! As the interstellar coordinates were activated, Yixian's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye amidst the faint whistling sound of the wind. Almost in the next instant, when his figure appeared again, he had crossed hundreds of billions of miles in the starry sky and returned to the central star area of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. Not far ahead was the miniature black hole star vortex that led into the primordial void. This was the second jump coordinate that Yixian had imprinted in this part of space. He did not enter the black hole star vortex immediately because the tribe of survivors from the Emperor Xian starfield still needed to settle down. It was not suitable for them to enter the primordial void and meet up with Yixian's subordinates in the nest of chaos origins. Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, the demonic dragon chariot was summoned by Yixian. Then with a thought, Zhao Dong and the other emperors of the Emperor Xian starfield were summoned and appeared in front of Yixian. After waving his hand again and putting away the demonic dragon chariot, Yixian immediately activated the demonic ape bloodline in his body. In an instant, he transformed from his human form into a 30-meter-tall demonic ape. However, he was still in the form of a violent ape of stars instead of having 3 heads and 6 arms. The ancient demonic ape. As a result, his cultivation base instantly rose from the 3rd Order Emperor realm to the 4th Order Emperor realm. He had stepped into the mid-stage Emperor realm from the early-stage Emperor realm. This scene gave Zhao Dong and the others a huge fright. Their faces were filled with bewilderment because they'd never seen Yixian appear in such a state before. Alright, it's me. This is my other identity. It's convenient for me to deal with the space beasts in the forbidden land of Rising Sun. Seeing the bewilderment in their eyes, Yixian immediately explained. Zhao Dong and the others immediately understood. Then they all gasped. Young master, your cultivation base. Wasn't it 1st Order Emperor realm before? Why are you at the 4th Order Emperor realm now? This is too fast, isn't it? Huh? There are so many planets with life. Every planet is filled with beasts in the Forbidden Land. Among them, there are 3 Emperor beasts. Could this be the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun? But it's only been an instant. How could it be so fast? The young master's attacks are truly extraordinary. He must have used some sort of secret technique that allowed him to teleport hundreds of billions of miles away in the blink of an eye. Although these 16 fellows were making a fuss out of nothing, their guesses were not wrong. Yixian's Devouring system's interstellar coordinate jump ability basically meant this. On this matter, he didn't say much. Even on the matter of cultivation base improvement, he only said a few words perfunctorily. Because of the Peak 8 Colors Flesh Divine Medicine, Zhao Dong and the others quickly thought it through and immediately sighed with admiration. Demon Master! It's Lord Demon Master, Lord Demon Cultivator is back. It was also at this moment that the voices of Dire Beast's divine senses came from the distant cosmic void. Turning around, it was the 3 Emperor Beasts, leading a group of King Beasts, who were shooting towards this direction. In truth, the countless Dire Beasts in the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun had already sensed Yixian the moment he arrived. After all, he was an Emperor Realm expert. Even if he didn't do it deliberately, the Emperor Realm aura emanating from his body was shocking enough. However, these Dire Beasts of the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun didn't know that Yixian had returned, so they didn't dare to show up in fear. It was only when they confirmed that Yixian had returned that they swarmed over excitedly. However, when they saw that there were actually more than a dozen remnant experts gathered around Yixian, and all of them were at the Emperor Realm, fear instantly appeared on the faces of the beasts that had swarmed over. In this fragmented void of the untainted land, the ferocious beasts of the starry sky and the experts of the remnant had always been incompatible. Now that 16 Emperor-level experts of the remnant had suddenly appeared in the Rising Star Forbidden Land, it was simply a catastrophe. If it wasn't for the fact that Yixian was here and that his cultivation had already reached the Emperor Realm, he would have been able to completely crush these 16 Emperor Realm survivors. The surrounding beasts in the forbidden grounds would have already scattered in all directions in fear and fled without a trace. Very quickly, the group of vicious beast kings arrived in front of them under the lead of the 3 vicious beast emperors. After greeting Yi Xian, they all looked towards Zhao Dong and the others. The 16 Emperor Realm experts did the same, and the meaning in their eyes was quite thought-provoking. For a moment, the atmosphere at the scene became a little solemn. Yi Xian didn't have the time to mediate with them, and immediately introduced both sides briefly. Then, he directly issued orders that the astral dire beasts of the forbidden land of the rising sun must coexist peacefully with the Emperor Xuanhuang's dire beasts. Fight! Together they would protect this vast star field. Otherwise, if someone dared to have second thoughts and go against him, Yi Xian would personally make a move and obliterate him. Under such dominance, whether it was the dire beasts of the forbidden land of the rising sun or Zhao Dong and the other Emperor Realm experts, all of them expressed their stance on the spot and negotiated the division of life stars in the forbidden land of the rising sun. All of this fell into Yi Xian's eyes, and he was extremely satisfied. Then, as if thinking of something, he turned to the group of dire beasts and Emperor Realm experts gathered around him and said, "As I said before, I'll provide you with a batch of pills of various grades for breaking through to the next realm. I've gained a lot from this trip, and I've even obtained the dire beasts of the Emperor Xuanhuang's forbidden land. I'm sure I'll be able to refine a large batch of pills of various grades. This Star Lord will immediately carry out this matter. If nothing unexpected happens, the pills will be distributed to all of you in 2 or 3 days. When that time comes, this Star Lord will enter seclusion again, and the task of guarding the forbidden land of the rising sun will be entrusted to all of you. With a total of 19 Emperor Realm experts holding the fort, and 4 half-step emperors among them, we won't have to fear even if a first-level Emperor Realm existence comes." Having said that, Yi Xian ignored Zhao Dong and the others who were overjoyed at the news, as well as the dire beasts who had gathered around him. With a flash of his figure, he instantly landed on the giant life star that belonged solely to him. He planned to use 3 days to condense all the dire beasts' blood essence into dire beasts' blood essence. Then, he would refine all the dire beasts' blood essence into pills of various grades. After this batch of pills was distributed, Yi Xian would enter seclusion and use the shortest time and the fastest speed to deduce the perfect formula of the level 25 pill that could help him break through to the Universe Night Realm. Chapter 44:13. Shenong Cauldron, Inner Space, at the bottom of the Central Domain volcano. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out one after another. Streaks of dark light shot out from the mouth of the cauldron above the Central Domain volcano, directly appearing above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano. Suddenly they paused for a moment and hovered there. Beads. These qi and blood beads were all formed by the remnant experts of the Xian Emperor Star region, after killing countless fierce beasts in the Xian Emperor Star region. They were kept in a storage magic treasure and handed over to Yi Xian. Now Yi Xian took them all out, intending to condense them into various levels of fierce beast blood essence. If it was before, Yi Xian could only condense these qi and blood beads one by one according to their level. But now he was an Emperor Realm expert, and the Shenong Strange Flame had evolved into an 8-colored flame. He could completely put them together and condense them at the same time. Whoosh! In the next moment, below all the qi and blood beads, in the flame pool at the bottom of the Central Domain volcano, a majestic Shenong 7-colored flame roared up, instantly condensing into an 8-colored cauldron that was about 10 feet in radius. It was small and simple, revealing an extraordinary aura. As this small cauldron formed purely from the Shenong 8-colored flames took shape, the blood and qi beads of the beasts that had been prepared earlier all flew up automatically and sank into this small cauldron that was only about 10 feet wide. From then on, the refinement of the fierce beast blood essence officially began. Unknowingly, time slowly passed. Boom! After about half a day, above the flame pool at the bottom of the Central Domain volcano, a loud roar suddenly sounded. The cauldron formed from the pure Shenong 8-colored flame instantly dissipated, and a river of 8-colored flames roared back into the flame pool below. What was left above the flame pool were countless blood-colored beads the size of a baby's fist. Although it was the same size as the fierce beast blood essence from before, it was completely different. The blood essence was blood red, and it emitted a dense qi and blood power. Although these beads were also the size of a baby's fist, They were dreamy and colorful, with a layer of halo on the surface. Different energy auras were emitted, dazzling everyone. The number of ferocious beasts in the entire Emperor Xianhuang starfield was unimaginable. Hence, the amount of ferocious beasts that were refined this time was insanely high. If it wasn't for that, Yi Xian wouldn't have taken half a day to complete the refinement. After doing all this, Yi Xian did not stop. He threw all the blood essences of the ferocious beasts, including the 7 blood essences of the titled emperors, into the fire pool at the bottom of the central region volcano. Immediately after, the refinement of the various levels of pellets began. This time it took a full 3 days for the refinement to end. Swish, swish, swish. As Yi Xian waved his hand, streaks of light shot up from the 8-colored flame pool at the bottom of the Shenong cauldron and gathered in front of him. They were all precious pills of various grades. They were separated according to their grades and floated in front of him. Among them, the largest number was naturally the immortal supreme pills, and there were tens of thousands of them. The smallest number was the level 24 Emperor Supreme pills, and there were 13 of them. Yi Xian couldn't distribute all the pellets that were refined this time. This was because even the ferocious beasts of the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, and the remnant experts of the Emperor Xianhuang starfield, did not have so many people who applied for the pellets. For example, only Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the other 2 people needed the level 24 Emperor Supreme pills. Although there were more people of different grades, there was still a surplus of them for this refinement. Yi Xian kept all the surplus pellets in his hands as reserve resources. As such, after this round of distribution, he would have a total of 13 level 24 Emperor titled treasure pills in his possession. There would be a total of 45 level 23 Emperor bestowment pills. There were a few hundred level 22 regal pills, and the amount of level 20 immortal pills in stock would increase to over 5,000. For a period of time in the future, there would be enough pellets of various grades for the time being. After keeping the surplus pellets of various grades, Yi Xian quickly put all the pellets of various grades that he was going to distribute into small jade bottles. According to the number of people who applied for the Forbidden Land's ferocious beasts and the remnant experts, they were divided into 2 halves. Each of them was put into a storage magic treasure. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a wave of his hand, the 2 storage magic treasures turned into rays of light and shot out. They directly rushed out of the planet's atmosphere and shot in 2 directions, and finally landed in the hands of a ferocious beast emperor in Zhao Dong. Today, Yi Xian was already a middle-stage emperor. Even if he did not move and sat inside the planet, nothing in the entire Forbidden Land of Rising Sun could escape his control. Outside the planet, the ferocious beasts and the remnant experts who had obtained a batch of precious pellets were extremely excited. Especially Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the other 3 who had each obtained a level 24 Emperor Supreme pill. They were even more grateful. Kneeling, Yi Xian did not pay attention to all of this. He quickly withdrew his mind and combined with the devouring system in his body. He pushed the system's calculation and deduction ability to the limit. Then, with the terrifying divine sense of a middle-stage emperor as support, he began to deduce the level 25 treasure pellets formula. The perfect pellet formula began to deduce. Previously, it took Yi Xian a full year to deduce the perfect pellet formula of the level 24 treasure pellet. This time, on one hand, Yi Xian's cultivation base had reached middle-stage emperor, and his divine sense was much stronger. On the other hand, it was because of the level 25 treasure pellet. Originally, he had already deduced about a quarter of the perfect pellet formula. Therefore, this time he only used about 3 months to successfully deduce the perfect pellet formula of the level 25 treasure pellet. Phew! Level 25 treasure pellet? Finally, I see hope. After the deduction of the perfect pellet formula was completed, Yi Xian let out a long sigh of relief. As he muttered to himself, his eyes flashed with extreme excitement. However, he did not come out of seclusion immediately. After pondering for a while, he decided to complete one more thing. He would then set off to enter the Hongmeng Void and hunt down all the emperors who were guarding the Forbidden Lands around the Milky Way star field. This was to deduce the complete mystery of the 8th transformation of the 9 transformations of demonic ape. Right now, Yi Xian had already comprehended the 7th transformation of the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of demonic ape. Once he unleashed it, his body size would instantly increase to 100 million feet, which was equivalent to 600,000 miles. His cultivation base would also reach the level of a second-stage universe knight. Once he fully comprehended the 8th transformation of the 9 transformations of demonic ape, then once he unleashed the 8th transformation, his body size would instantly reach 1 billion feet, which was equivalent to 6 million miles. Even the largest gigantic planet would not be able to reach that size. This was it. Chapter 44:14. After making the decision, Yi Xian did not hesitate and immediately retracted his thoughts. At the same time, he adjusted the calculation ability of the devouring system in his body to the limit. Using his powerful divine sense as a mid-stage emperor, he began to calculate. Unknowingly, time passed slowly. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Regarding the 8th transformation of the devil ape, Yi Xian had already asked the devouring system in his body to calculate for a long time. He had already completed more than 30% of it. The last 70% of the calculations were finally completed after a month of exhaustion. After a month, a familiar system notification sounded in Yi Xian's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The 8th transformation of the 9 devil ape has been calculated. Do you want to activate it now? Activate. Yi Xian's heart surged. Without any hesitation, he immediately opened his eyes and gave the system the order to activate. Rumble. In the next instant, a large amount of extremely complex runes and information surged into his mind. The amount was so huge that it made his hair stand on end. Even with Yi Xian's current third-order emperor cultivation base and powerful divine sense, he felt a little dizzy. He felt dizzy. The amount of obscure runes that surged into his mind was the complete profundity of the 8th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. Although these profundities had been completely deduced by Yi Xian and the devouring system in his body, if he wanted to use them successfully, Yi Xian would need to comprehend them himself. This was expected. Mastery by the system and mastery by oneself were two completely different concepts. However, to Yi Xian, this was not a difficult task. With the foundation of the previous 7 transformations and the deduction of the profundities of the 8th transformation, he had already participated in it. Therefore, in just a day or so, the vast amount of information about the profound mysteries of the 8th transformation that surged into his mind had already been completely comprehended by him and completely integrated. However, once he entered the 8th transformation of the devil ape, his current size of 100 feet would instantly increase to 1 billion feet, which was 100 million times more than his original size. This was definitely not something the planet under his feet could withstand, even if it was already a gigantic planet. Swish! In the next instant, a faint sound of something breaking through the air was heard. Yi Xian's figure directly rushed out of the planet's atmosphere. When he appeared again, he was already in the cosmic void outside the planet in the blink of an eye. Then, without hesitation, he raised his head and roared. 9 devil ape, 8th transformation. Bang! As his voice fell, a huge explosion sounded. This time, the speed of his body's growth was much faster than before. The power in his body surged like a roaring river. His limbs and bones surged with boundless ferocity, and a terrifying aura that was so majestic that it made one's hair stand on end gushed out. His original height of 100 feet, but it was at an extremely fast speed. In less than 3 breaths of time, it had already reached a height of 1 billion feet, which was 3 million kilometers. This was definitely comparable to a real giant planet or even more so. Of course, at the same time his body expanded, the cultivation aura emanating from Yi Xian's body also rose at the same speed. In 3 breaths of time, he'd gone from the 3rd level of the Immortal Emperor stage to the 3rd level of the Universe Sovereign stage. He had leaped an entire level. Activate the calculation ability immediately and fully deduce. The 9th transformation of the devil ape. As his heart surged, Yi Xian took a deep breath. He was incomparably happy as he felt the boundless blood and qi in his body that caused his hair to stand on end. After a long time, when he gradually calmed down, he immediately ordered the devouring system in his body to continue the deduction. The 9th transformation of the devil ape was the last transformation of the 9 devil ape. Ever since Yi Xian had obtained this powerful bloodline ability, he had continued to grow and become an emperor. Finally, he was about to comprehend this bloodline ability to the extreme. Shio! Shaking his head and dispelling the feelings in his heart, Yi Xian removed the 8th transformation of the devil ape with a thought. A weak sound of breaking through the air rang out once again. With a flash of his body, he returned from the dark void in the distance and returned to his previous closed-door cultivation. The giant planet. Young master, is that you? I am Zhao Dong. I am Qian Nan. As soon as he entered the planet, Zhao Dong and Qian Nan's voices could be heard from outside the atmosphere. They were inquiring and cautious, and they seemed to be more respectful than before. At this time, it had already been a few months since the last time Yi Xian bestowed a large number of precious pills of various levels. After obtaining the level 24 Emperor Sealing Pellet, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the others immediately went into closed-door cultivation. Now, the 4 of them had successfully broken through and become emperors. They were all level 1 emperors. However, Yi Xian had always been in closed-door cultivation, so they didn't dare disturb him. However, just a moment ago, they seemed to have sensed Yi Xian's aura and transformed into an extremely fast beam of light as they shot away. After arriving at a remote area in the distance, their bodies actually expanded explosively. In less than 3 breaths, he had already surpassed the size of a gigantic star, and the aura emanating from his body was terrifying enough to surpass the level of Emperor and reach the level of a 3rd-level Universe Knight. All of this was too sudden, giving Zhao Dong and the others a huge shock. Yi Xian had never used the 9 transformations of the demonic ape in front of them before. Therefore, they didn't dare to be sure that the terrifying existence whose body had instantly expanded to the size of a giant star was the young master they had just recognized. After all, that was level 3 Universe Knight level, which was an entire level higher than their young master. It was simply unimaginable, causing their hearts to jump out of their throats. However, just as they were extremely shocked and their hearts were pounding madly, that gigantic being shrunk in the blink of an eye, and his energy dropped back to level 3 Emperor level. He then transformed into a beam of light and shot back to the giant planet where their young master was in closed-door cultivation. This caused Zhao Dong and the others to be suspicious. After a moment of hesitation, they finally braced themselves, gritted their teeth and rushed over. They tried to sound out to see if Yi Xian would respond. "It's me, don't be afraid." Just as Zhao Dong and the other 3 were feeling extremely nervous, Yi Xian's voice finally sounded from within the star. "Just now, I was only using a bloodline ability that I had just comprehended. It seems like the effect is not bad." "Not bad?" Level 3 Emperor level. In the blink of an eye, his power had increased by an entire level, reaching level 3 Universe Knight level. Such a terrifying bloodline ability was simply unheard of. However, from their young master's mouth, the evaluation was merely not bad. Chapter 44:15. Xiu. The moment he finished speaking, a faint sound broke through the air, and Yi Xian's body rushed out of the atmosphere of this giant star, appearing before Zhao Dong and the others. At this time, Huang Xiaolong's bloodline was still activated, and he was still in his violent star's ape form. Therefore, the aura exuding from his body was one small order higher than when he was in human form, reaching the 4th order Emperor realm. This scene once again caused the expressions of Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the other 2 to change. They sucked in a breath of cold air, and one after another they softly exclaimed, "Leader, when we first met in Emperor Xian's starfield, you were only at the 1st level of Emperor level, but now..." "Yes, how long has it been? You actually reached the 4th level of Emperor level in such a short time." From the initial stage to the middle stage, even for those below the Undying level, it's rare for them to improve so quickly, let alone the Emperor level. Besides, that bloodline ability is too shocking, isn't it? Using it, you actually have the power of a Universe Knight and a 3rd level one. An entire level of improvement. This is simply unheard of, too shocking. Hearing these words, Yi Xian smiled faintly, but he didn't say anything. His gaze fell on the 4, sizing them up. After that, he smiled and nodded, saying, "Although this Star Master's improvement is a little fast, but haven't you all broken through to the Emperor level as well? With the blood godly medicine, it's only natural for your cultivation to improve so quickly. Work hard, quickly reach the 9th level of Emperor level, and by then this Star Master will give you a level 25 Knight pill that can help you break through to the Universe Knight level. Even this is definitely not the end. As long as you have the opportunity after the Knight level, the Universe Master level is not impossible." Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the others looked at each other, their faces filled with excitement. Their chests rose and fell as their breathing quickened, and their eyes blazed. The four of them had entered the peak Ninth Order Emperor realm for quite some time now, but they were still stuck at the peak Ninth Order Emperor realm, unable to break through. In other words, the only wish and goal of Zhao Dong and his crew was to one day break through to the Martial Monarch realm and become a real Martial Monarch realm expert instead of a half-Martial Monarch realm cultivator. However, the further one progressed, the harder it was to break through the bottleneck. After so many years, the four of them had never been able to break through, and this made them disheartened. It was already so difficult to break through to the Emperor level, to the point that they didn't even dare to hope for more. But now, the wish of so many years had suddenly been realized with incomparable ease. The four of them hadn't even adjusted their states of mind when they heard Yixian say such words. It was as if they'd been enlightened, instantly causing Zhao Dong and the others to be enlightened. At this moment, their state of mind was elevated, and the haze that had accumulated in their hearts for so many years was cleared. At this moment, the four of them boldly looked forward to the future, thinking of the Universe Knight level, and even the more powerful Universe Master level, and Universe Supreme level. In the past, they would never have dared to believe that there would be a day when they would be so ambitious, daring to dream of such a level of strength. But now, after following Yixian and witnessing the birth of one miracle after another, the four of them no longer felt conflicted, and their Dao hearts were solid and firm. With a tacit understanding, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the others turned to exchange a look, cupped their fists together, and knelt down on one knee before Yixian. Although they didn't say anything at this moment, everything was in their hearts. "All right, all of you get up." Seeing that the four of them had completely surrendered, and after being enlightened by his words, the flaws in their state of mind were completely fixed, and they had achieved a small elevation. The future path of cultivation would be much smoother. Yixian also felt comforted. He faintly smiled, then his expression turned solemn as he brought up the matter at hand. "Since the four of you have already broken through, there are now 4 Emperor-level experts and 15 Emperor-level existences in the forbidden area of Rising Sunday. This is the scale of a top-tier forbidden land of starry sky. Within the void space of 1 trillion miles, it is the only existence at the level of a giant, and there won't be any danger at all. As such, it's time for me to enter the Hongmeng Void again." Yixian had thought about this matter carefully. In fact, there was originally one more thing that Yixian wanted to deal with before he officially entered the Hongmeng Void for the second time. That was the group of subordinates of Green Ox, and the forbidden land of Phoenix Blood. Now the Hongmeng Void had reappeared, and even the Milky Way star domain where the mysterious mother planet was located had been found. Yixian had an extremely strong premonition that in the future, when the world changed dramatically and the Chaos World fully descended, the core of everything would be in the Hongmeng Void. In the Hongmeng Void, around the Milky Way star domain that had not been unsealed and was protected by a mysterious force of Hongmeng, the Phoenix Blood star domain and other places had long been reduced to peripheral areas, and there was no value or need to continue to stay there. Therefore, Green Ox and the group of subordinates of Forbidden Land of Phoenix Blood would be brought over sooner or later to join Zhao Dong and the others in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sunday. Even Zhao Dong and the others, when the time was right in the future, could no longer continue to stay in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun outside the Hongmeng Void. Instead, they would enter the Hongmeng Void. They would join the group of demon experts and Yixian's original subordinates who had stayed in the base camp of the Source Nest Star. The Source Nest Star was the true base camp of Yixian. It was the foundation for him to conquer the Chaos World in the future and fight for the good fortune of the Mother Planet. In fact, it wasn't just the Green Ox and the Forbidden Land of Phoenix Blood that were under his command. If it was a little further away, then Yixian even had the intention of bringing over the power of the 3 main planes of the Starry Sky realm. For example, the Sky River Star and the subordinates on the Victorious Return Star. Unfortunately, there was no time to deal with all this now. To him now, the more important thing was to make the level 25 pill. After all, the perfect formula of the level 25 pill had been successfully deduced. Yixian's own cultivation level had reached the 3rd stage of Emperor Undying. After a few more small breakthroughs, he would reach the 9th stage of Emperor Undying. At that time, if he did not make the level 25 pill, his cultivation level would be stuck before the level of Universe Knight, and he would not be able to make a breakthrough. That would be too regrettable. After all, Once he reached the level of Universe Knight, Yixian's cultivation level would be improved by another level under the 8th change of Demon Ape. He would have the terrifying battle power of a Universe Master. Chapter 44:16. After bidding farewell to Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, and the other three, Yixian left alone and concealed himself. After a short while, he arrived outside the miniature black hole star whirlpool that led into the Hongmeng Void. This miniature black hole star whirlpool was not eye-catching in the central star sector of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. Its location was relatively remote, and its scale was very small. After entering, it was completely empty. There was nothing at all. There was not even a speck of cosmic dust in the void. It could be said that it was extremely safe. Although Yixian had revealed to Zhao Dong and the other three that the entrance to the Hongmeng Void was somewhere in the Rising Sun Forbidden Land, he did not mention the existence of this black hole star whirlpool. The Hongmeng Void was of great importance, and there was no doubt about the loyalty of Zhao Dong and the others. However, out of caution, he decided not to reveal it for the time being. At this moment, after activating his spiritual energy to perfectly oscillate and concealing all the aura around him, Yixian did not hesitate and immediately rushed into the black hole star whirlpool. Then, he directly activated the interstellar coordinate jump ability. This time, the coordinate jump point he locked onto was the coordinate he had imprinted in the void near the Source Nest base camp star when he left. Today, Yixian's system title of the Devouring system in his body had reached level 6, which was the interstellar controller. The interstellar controller could imprint 3 interstellar coordinate jump points in the same void of the universe plane. Before entering the Hongmeng Void, Yixian had already imprinted an interstellar coordinate jump point in the Mulberry Tree star sector. After entering the Hongmeng Void, he imprinted a second interstellar coordinate jump point near the strongest Source Nest base camp star, where his energy body was nurtured. After that, when he left the other Source Nest base camp star, Yixian imprinted a third interstellar coordinate jump point in the nearby void. Originally, he thought that after these 3 interstellar coordinate jump points were used up, he would not be able to imprint any more interstellar coordinate jump points here. However, in truth, after leaving here and returning to the Rising Sun Forbidden Grounds, he had killed all 8 emperors and subdued all the other beasts. Yixian arrived at the edge of the black hole star vortex that was located at the entrance to the primordial void. He tried to brand the interstellar coordinate jump point again, but he didn't expect that he would succeed after trying. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to return to the forbidden land of the rising sun in the blink of an eye. That accidental success of the imprint caused Yixian to instantly come to a realization. It turned out that according to the system's judgment, the primordial void fragment where the forbidden land of rising sun, the forbidden land of phoenix blood, and the Xianhuang starfield were located was not on the same universe plane as the primordial void within the black hole star vortex. As for Yixian's level 6 system title ability, he could imprint 3 interstellar coordinate jump points in any universe. In other words, Yixian had only imprinted 2 interstellar coordinate jump points in the primordial void fragment and the primordial void fragment outside the black hole star vortex. There was still one indicator that had not been used up. To him, this was definitely a great piece of news. The primordial void fragment outside the black hole star vortex was not important at all. However, the primordial void fragment within the star vortex was of utmost importance. Yixian planned to keep the remaining indicator of the interstellar coordinate jump point and wait for an opportunity in the future to see if he could break through the primordial void fragment outside the Milky Way star field. The protective force would allow him to enter the Milky Way star field in advance. After all, Yixian was different from others. He had a strand of primordial void fragment. Although the Milky Way star field was not open yet, it was protected by an extremely powerful and invisible primordial void fragment. However, Yixian might not have a chance if others couldn't enter. If he could enter, he would use up the last indicator in the Milky Way star field. In this way, even in the years when the Milky Way star field had not been unsealed, he could still go back and forth quietly at will. This thought had already grown in Yixian's mind when he accidentally imprinted a set of interstellar coordinates outside the black hole star vortex of the rising sun forbidden area. From there, he realized that he actually had an indicator in each of these 2 places. This time, Yixian's main purpose of coming back was to get close to the edge of the Milky Way star field and find an opportunity to test whether this plan could be implemented. Of course, all of this was for later. Now that he had just returned, the first thing was to return to the Source Nest base camp and see if the situation in his backyard was stable before making any plans. Shio! A faint sound of breaking through the air sounded, and Yi Xian's figure appeared instantly. He turned his head and looked around. The surrounding void was quite familiar. Not far away it was the Source Nest base camp that looked like a giant abandoned planet on the surface. This void was very empty, and it was very far away from the Milky Way star field. Therefore, there were almost no forbidden area beasts and masters who passed by nearby. Yi Xian spread out his divine sense and soon saw the situation in the Source Nest base camp. Outside the star there was no one, but on the surface of the star, there were some sporadic forbidden area beasts wandering. Obviously, they were the patrolling soldiers arranged by the flying centipede, old monster silver pole, and the 8 great Vajra. It seemed that everything was as usual, and there was no abnormality. With his heart suddenly relieved, Yi Xian's figure flickered, and after a while, he landed on the surface of the Source Nest star. After waving his hand to dismiss the patrolling fierce beasts that gathered after hearing the news, he immediately entered the interior of the star and went straight to the core of the star. As soon as he entered the core of the star, Yi Xian was shocked. This Source Nest star was extremely huge. Just the diameter of the core of the star was more than the size of an ordinary abandoned star. Before Yi Xian left, he threw the giant plug of Long Yi Hao here, so that the world worm in the giant plug of life could absorb the rich innate energy in the Source Nest star freely. At that time, if the entire space inside the core of the star was compared to a watermelon, then the giant plug of Long Yi Hao was equivalent to an apple stuffed into the watermelon. That was roughly the ratio. But now the apple that was put into the watermelon had grown up, and it was not just an ordinary size. It was clearly a small watermelon, only a few circles smaller than the entire space inside the core. At this rate, the entire core of the star would be filled with the giant plug of Long Yi Hao, and it was very likely that it would continue to expand. In the end, this Source Nest star might no longer exist, and it would be completely blown up by the giant plug of Long Yi Hao. Heavens, this is a top-level giant star. If the giant plug of Long Yi Hao can grow to this extent. Looking at the giant plug of Long Yi Hao in front of him in a daze, Yi Xian was dumbfounded for a long time. Chapter 44:17. Boss, you're back. Fourth Order Monarch? That's too fast, isn't it? If he were to transform into a giant ape of stars, wouldn't he be able to break through the Emperor realm and become a universe knight? Seeing Yi Xian's arrival, the flying centipede, old monster Inji, and the 8 great guardian deities immediately rushed over. When they sensed the cultivation aura emanating from Yi Xian's body, the expressions of all 10 of them changed as they cried out in shock. Then they calmed down and explained to Yi Xian about the wild dragon ship. Hearing this, Yi Xian understood that after he left, the life fortress of the Long Yi Hao continued to grow. It grew bigger and bigger, and in the end it occupied almost half of the space within the star core. Originally, Yi Xian had left this star core for the flying centipede, old monster Silver G, the 8 great Vajra, and the tens of thousands of ferocious beasts that had been released from the cauldron. Now that the wild dragon ship occupied half of the space, it became extremely cramped. The tens of millions of beasts also needed space to live. Left with no choice, flying centipede, old monster Silver G, and the others could only look for Gui Hai Dao, and the other great beings of the demon race who had been cultivating in seclusion in the wild dragon ship. They wanted them to open up a layer of space in the wild dragon ship for them, and the tens of millions of beasts to enter. During this time, however, even Gui Hai Dao and the other great beings of the demon race were helpless. They only had access to the layer where the great beings of the demon race were cultivating in seclusion. Yi Xian had completely sealed off the other hundreds of layers of space in the wild dragon ship. Other than him, no one else could open it. He had the access. Just as everyone was at a loss of what to do, the wild dragon ship seemed to have completed a stage of evolution in just a few days. It actually expanded by a large circle. This time, it actually opened up one of the 108 layers of space in the wild dragon ship. It was a vast world with mountains and rivers. The spiritual energy was abundant, and it was enough for the tens of millions of beasts to live in. Thus, the biggest problem was solved. Since then, the many passages in the inner space of this level had always been open, allowing the flying centipede, old monster silver constellation, the 8 great guardian deities, and more than 10 million ferocious beasts to and fro in and out of the forbidden grounds. It seems that it is really going to replace this source hive star and grow into a supergiant. After understanding the situation, Yi Xian nodded in satisfaction. Since the Long Yi Hao's life fortress could automatically open up a layer of authority, it meant that as the fortress evolved and grew, the intelligence of the world bugs would also become higher and higher. Yi Xian was not worried about this at all. He had already refined the core crystal of the world worm. It was impossible for it to betray him. The higher its intelligence, the better news it would be for Yi Xian. Because in this way, when it replaced this source hive planet and grew into a super behemoth, becoming the headquarters nest of Yi Xian's subordinates, even if Yi Xian was not here, the world worm spawn race would also encounter special situations. They would make appropriate adjustments. It could be said that their flexibility had increased greatly, so Yi Xian was naturally more at ease. After exchanging pleasantries, he learned that Gui Hai Dao and all the other demon cultivator experts were still in seclusion in the Long Yi Hao's life fortress. During this period of time, whether it was the flying centipede, old monster silver constellation, the 8 great guardian deities, or more than 1,000 stationed here tens of thousands of ferocious beasts, everyone's cultivation base and strength had increased by a large margin. Not bad, but this level of strength is far from enough. It's not enough to accompany this Star Lord in conquering the 4 directions in this primordial void. After nodding in approval, Yi Xian's expression turned solemn. He immediately said, "This time this Star Lord only came back to take a look. I don't have time to stay. I'll leave immediately. I'll send you a batch of cultivation resources while I'm at it." After saying that, he waved his hand. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! A faint sound of breaking through the air rang out. This time Yi Xian took out a small portion of the vast amount of cultivation resources he had harvested outside and stored them in small spatial boxes with huge capacities. At this moment he sent them out to the flying centipede, old monster silver constellation, and the 8 great guardian deities. In the hands of the Vajra. This included the first batch of 8-colored divine medicines he refined this time, as well as a small number of peak 8-colored divine medicines of flesh and blood. Yi Xian also left behind some treasures of various levels that could be used to break through the bottleneck of a large realm. In short, it was enough for the subordinates in the base camp to use in a short period of time. After doing all this, Yi Xian gave some instructions to the flying centipede, old monster silver constellation, and the 8 great guardian deities before leaving. This time he did not rush out of the source nest star core. Instead, he directly activated the interstellar coordinate jump ability inside the source nest star core. This time the destination of the jump was also in the primordial void, but it was even further away. It was located in a remote void that was empty. Xiu! A faint sound of breaking through the air rang out, and Yi Xian's figure appeared in the void. He turned around and saw the strongest source nest star at the end of his line of sight in the distance. Yi Xian's strongest body, which was also his strength body, was being nurtured within the core of this source nest star. As this source nest star already had an owner, it had activated a certain process. Therefore, when Yi Xian's strength body sprouted and began to be nurtured within the core of the source nest star, this huge source nest star had already been protected by an invisible force of the primordial law. It had been faintly protecting it. It was just like the Milky Way star field that had yet to open. Now that it was far away, it did not seem to have any abnormalities. However, if someone were to approach it, even if it was Yi Xian's original body, within a distance of 1,000 miles, a layer of halo would immediately appear on the surface of the star. It seemed very weak, but in fact Yi Xian's current state was so strong that even a universe master or even a universe supreme might not be able to blast it open. From this point of view, this source hive star was actually very safe. However, after all, it was nurturing Yi Xian's strength body, which was known as his strongest body. In the future, when the great wilderness world fully descended and a new era began, this body would be of great significance to Yi Xian. It would not be an exaggeration to say that it was his strongest trump card. As such, he was a little nervous about this matter. At this moment, before entering the supreme forbidden lands around the Milky Way star field, he had specially rushed over to check on the situation. It was understandable. And now, after checking and confirming that everything was fine on the source nest star, Yi Xian's heart was finally completely relieved. Chapter 44:18. Xiao. A faint sound broke through the air, and a beam of light shot out from the end of the void space. In the blink of an eye, it arrived at the border of Voracious Wolf Forbidden Zone. When they arrived here, the strands of light that shot over abruptly stopped, and a figure stood in midair. Shockingly, it was a starry sky ferocious ape that was 300 m tall. This space-raging ape was Yixian, who had left the origin nest star where his most powerful body had been nurtured and rushed to the Milky Way star sector. Currently, his cultivation base had reached the 3rd level of the Immortal Emperor realm. If he activated the demon ape bloodline in his body and transformed into an ancient demon ape or a space-raging ape, his strength would increase by 1 level, reaching the 4th level of Emperor level. Now, not only had he activated the demon ape bloodline in his body, but he had also performed the 9 changes of demon ape bloodline technique. However, he had only performed the first change of demon ape. Under the first change, his height of 300 meters would increase by 10 times, reaching a height of 300 meters, and his strength would increase by 1 level, reaching the 5th level of Emperor level. Yixian was now in this state and strength. After standing still, the eyes of the space-raging ape flashed, and he looked toward the Milky Way star sector at the end of his sight. He was fascinated. This place was still very far from the border of the Milky Way star sector, but because the entire Hongmeng void space was pitch black, there were very few stars in the sky. Usually one could only see one abandoned star after 1 or 2 months of traveling in the void space. Because of this pitch black environment, the Milky Way star sector, which had a large number of stars emitting light and heat, was very eye-catching here. Even if it was very far away, it could still be seen. From where Yixian was now, the vast Milky Way star sector was only a flat silver plate that was not much bigger than a star. There were a lot of stars in it, and it gave people a dreamy feeling when they gazed at it. Currently, the entire vast Milky Way star field was firmly protected by an invisible force of the primordial law. No one could enter. Otherwise, the moment they approached the border area, a disaster would befall them. Even Universe Knights and Universe Masters could be affected. Death. However, over the countless years, a large number of top-tier great beings from different universes and fragments of the starry sky had gathered around the border of the Milky Way star sector. Gradually, many forbidden lands and star sectors were formed here, and there were also a large number of small powers and independent cultivators. All of this surrounded the entire Milky Way star sector. Everyone was waiting for the day the Milky Way star sector opened. Then they would rush in, seize the resources, occupy the mysterious mother planet, and seize the supreme luck of the upcoming era. This day should be coming soon. I really don't have much time left. Yixian stared blankly at the distant Milky Way star region for a few minutes before slowly coming back to his senses. His heart was filled with emotion as he couldn't help but mutter softly with a sigh. The main purpose of his re-entry into the Hongmeng Void was to enter the forbidden lands around the Milky Way star sector and secretly kill the Emperor-level space beasts. The Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land ahead was his first target. Yixian already had a rough understanding of the situation in the Greed Wolf Forbidden area. The Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land was an elementary forbidden land. In other words, the most powerful being guarding this forbidden land was only a Universe Knight, not a Universe Master. A forbidden land with a Universe Master guarding, it would be an intermediate forbidden land. However, there was more than one Universe Knight guarding the Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land. There were 2 Universe Knights in total. One was an initial Universe Knight level Rift Demon Tiger, and the other was an intermediate Universe Knight level Subblood Greedy Wolf. That's right. Although the Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land was named after the Greedy Wolf, in fact, the most powerful being in this elementary forbidden land was only a Subblood Greedy Wolf. The legendary Greedy Wolf was a supreme ferocious beast from the prehistoric era. It was at least as powerful as the 7 gorgeous cultivators in the prehistoric era. This Subblood Greedy Wolf was most likely a descendant of the Greedy Wolf. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been able to reach its current level of cultivation and become an intermediate Universe Knight. Other than these 2 supreme ferocious beasts at the Universe Knight level, there were countless other ferocious beasts of different levels in the Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land. Yixian didn't bother to pay attention to the Emperor-level space beasts at the moment. If he encountered one, he'd just kill it if the situation permitted. He'd get an Emperor-level blood essence to store. He'd have enough in the future to make 20 more. Level 4 Emperor-level treasure pills were for his subordinates to consume. However, it was impossible for him to deliberately kill a ferocious beast emperor. Hence, Yi Xian didn't pay much attention to the Emperor-level beings in the voracious wolf star area. Below the Universe Knight level and above the Emperor level, there were only Emperor-level undyings. This was also the reason why Yi Xian returned to the primordial void. Within the voracious wolf forbidden land, there were a total of 10 Emperor-level ferocious beasts. This number made Yi Xian drool. If he could kill all 10 Emperor-level ferocious beasts, he'd be able to get 10 Emperor-level blood essences immediately. That way, the moment he started to make the level 25 Knight-level treasure pills, the chances of producing 4 would be as high as 60%. However, this was obviously impossible. If he did, Yi Xian would definitely be exposed. The only result would be that the 2 Universe Knights in the voracious wolf forbidden land, namely the Rift Demon Tiger and the Subblood Greedy Wolf, were all attracted here. The current Yi Xian, when using the 8th transformation of the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, instantly possessed the terrifying battle prowess of a 3rd-level universe sovereign. If he added on the enormous demon ape body that was larger than a huge star, he wouldn't even fear a 4th-level universe knight. He'd be able to fight them head-on and guarantee that he wouldn't lose. However, if it was 1 against 2, that wouldn't be good. If he wanted to escape, he'd most likely have to pay a huge price. Hence, the idea of killing multiple Emperor-level undyings in the voracious wolf forbidden land was simply unrealistic. Yi Xian's current goal was to kill 2 Emperor-level undyings. He'd try to kill the first one without anyone noticing. Then he'd seize the time to lock onto the second one and kill it with lightning speed. The moment he succeeded, he'd immediately activate his interstellar coordinate jump ability and flee. If that's the case, there shouldn't be too much of a problem. Chapter 44:19. Xiu. A weak sound of something breaking through the air rang out as Yi Xian's figure shot through the air. In the blink of an eye, he'd already charged into the Greed Wolf forbidden area. At this moment he was a space berserk ape. His cultivation base was at the 5th stage of the Emperor realm. Before entering this place, Yi Xian had already activated his mental force secret technique to perfectly vibrate, concealing his entire body. All of his aura was restrained to the point where it didn't leak out the slightest bit. Previously, when his cultivation was still weak, he could use a perfect mental energy secret technique to avoid opponents that were several realms stronger than him. Although this kind of hair-raising effect was gradually weakened as Yi Xian's cultivation grew higher and higher. Now it was impossible to avoid the detection of opponents who were a few levels stronger than him, as they would sense a faint trace of his aura. However, he could still detect those who were a few levels stronger than him. In other words, with his current power as a level 5 emperor, he could easily hide from the detection of a level 5 universe knight with his perfect vibration spirit technique. There were 2 universe knights in Greedy Wolf Forbidden Zone, but one of them was only a level 5 universe knight. Even the Subblood Greedy Wolf was only a level 5 universe knight. It could be said that in the entire Greedy Wolf Forbidden area, the only existence that could detect Yi Xian's aura was the inferior Blood Greedy Wolf. And as he was only a level 5 universe knight, it would be difficult to detect Yi Xian even if he spread his godly consciousness over a large area, unless he focused on a small area. But as a universe knight, how could he have such a bad taste in his daily life? He was more likely bored, hence Yi Xian was fearless. After he entered Greedy Wolf Forbidden Zone, he rushed to the right side of the Forbidden Zone. He didn't even try to hide his speed because no matter how fast he was, he wouldn't be able to cause even the slightest ripple in space. Everything was suppressed by perfect vibration. His target this time was a 6-tailed lewd fox, who was a level 2 emperor undying. As one of the 10 emperors in Greedy Wolf Forbidden Zone, she wasn't supposed to stay at the edge of the Forbidden Zone. The reason for this was because this 6-tailed lewd fox would mate with some ferocious beasts in the Forbidden Grounds every so often. Moreover, when she did that, her body would be suffused with an extremely dense scent of foxy sex, and it wouldn't disperse for a long time and enveloped a large expanse of the starry sky. Hence, if she stayed at the center of Greedy Wolf Forbidden Zone, the space-rending demon tiger and Subblood Greedy Wolf would be disturbed. Therefore, this six-tailed lewd fox tactfully found a void at the right edge of the forbidden area of greedy wolf and lay dormant there. In fact, because of this bad habit of hers, she didn't have many subordinates following her. Except for some of the ferocious beasts that she had captured and kept as her companions, in the hundreds of ferocious beasts in the universe where this six-tailed perverted fox resided, almost all of them were perverted foxes of the same species as her. It was simply a nest of foxes. Yixian didn't like the six-tailed lewd fox. If he didn't need the Emperor blood essence right now, he wouldn't even come close to this space. Because even if he used the back of his head to think, he could predict that as soon as he entered this area, there would definitely be a dense foxy smell in the air, and it was extremely annoying. Fortunately, he was now under the protection of the perfect vibration of his spirit power secret technique, so his internal aura couldn't spread out, and the external aura couldn't penetrate, which saved his nose a lot of trouble. Xiao! With his extreme speed, Yixian entered the remote area where the six-tailed lewd fox lived in just half a day later. There weren't many stars in the space, only a little more than 100. The one in the center was obviously bigger, and if he wasn't mistaken, it should be the lair of the six-tailed lewd fox. Yixian subconsciously frowned, because the hundreds of stars in front of him all had atmospheres. But this was obviously not an ordinary atmosphere. All of them were faintly yellow. If he wasn't mistaken, it should be formed by the accumulation of the foxy fumes from the bodies of the lewd foxes. This is really more than 100 interstellar layer. Looking at this scene, Yixian's eyes flashed with a hint of helplessness. Without hesitation, he suddenly increased his speed, and with a whoosh, he rushed into the giant star in the center in the blink of an eye. When he passed through this yellow atmosphere, Yixian's hair stood on end, not because he was afraid, but because he was disgusted. Fortunately, he had the perfect vibration of his spirit power secret technique to isolate all the aura outside, otherwise he really didn't know if he could hold on. Go down. It was very likely that he would faint in this disgusting yellow atmosphere. Fortunately, after passing through the yellow atmosphere and entering the interior of the star, the environment he saw was not like this place where yellow foxy fumes were everywhere. The scenery in the star was quite beautiful, but Yixian wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. He quietly spread out his spirit sense, and in the blink of an eye, in a valley surrounded by giant peaks on the right, he saw a pink demon fox about 100 feet in size. Behind its body were 6 pink furry tails, and the cultivation aura emitted from its body was that of a second-order immortal emperor. Obviously, this was the main character Yixian's target this time. What made him extremely speechless was that at this moment, this six-tailed lewd fox was actually having sex. In addition to her, there were more than 100 other fierce beasts in the valley. They had all kinds of bloodlines and their bodies were very strong, but their cultivation strength was all the same. Ordinary immortal realm warriors were trembling at this moment, guarding the edge of the valley, surrounding the six-tailed lewd fox in the center. One of the star beasts was being pressed down by the six-tailed lewd fox and was already on the verge of death. When ordinary immortal realm beasts were having sex with Thearcrank beasts, the result was obvious. When it ended, they would basically be sucked dry. This might be a way for the six-tailed lewd fox to increase its cultivation. However, this bloodline talent was indeed a little too disgusting. Yixian's eyes flashed coldly, and he didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately rushed over and didn't say anything. When he was above the valley, he directly punched down. Bang! Rumble. With one punch, the six-tailed lewd fox in the valley below didn't even have a chance to react. The body that was pressing down on that pitiful fierce beast exploded in an instant, turning into a pink blood mist that spread out. Swish. Chapter 44:20. Half an hour later, Yixian had already left the greedy wolf star region. At this time, the pink blood at the bottom of the volcano in Shinnong Dingyang region had also finished condensing. His body stopped abruptly in the void space, but he did not remove the perfect vibration of the spirit energy technique. Xiu! With a flip of his hand, a slight sound of breaking through the void was heard. In the palm of Yixian's right hand, a pink pearl the size of a pigeon egg appeared. It was the blood essence of the six-tailed lewd fox that was condensed from the blood of the six-tailed fox. This was the first blood essence that Yixian had obtained. It was very significant. However, at this time, looking at the pink pearl in his palm, Yixian did not feel happy. He even felt a little depressed. This blood pearl was pink and not crimson like blood. This was obviously related to the six-tailed fox. Previously, when she had exploded with one punch, the blood mist that had spread out was pink. Who would have thought that after condensing the blood essence that he obtained would still have characteristics related to the six-tailed fox? This situation had never happened before. Maybe it was because the strength of an emperor had already reached a certain level. It was far from what an emperor could compare to. However, this was also what Yi Xian was worried about. Although he was sure that this wouldn't affect the refinement of the level 25 venerable pellet, as long as he gathered 5 emperor blood essences and started refining the pellet, Yi Xian was 100% confident that he would be able to refine a level 25 venerable pellet. However, being able to create a level 25 night treasure was one thing. As for the effects of the night treasure, other than allowing an Emperor level 9 complete being to break through to Universe Supreme, would there be any other side effects? This was hard to say. After all, the blood essence of an Emperor was different from the blood essences condensed before. Even the blood essence of an Emperor was crimson like blood. Only this blood essence of an Emperor-level ferocious beast still had some characteristics of a ferocious beast. Forget it, I'll deduce this matter again later. There should be a result. At most, I'll create one to test the effect first. After a moment of hesitation, Yi Xian muttered to himself. He decided not to consider this matter for the time being. After all, he only had one Emperor blood essence in his possession right now. He was still far from gathering the 5 minimum required to refine a level 25 venerable pellet. No matter what, he had to at least get 4 more blood essences of an Emperor first. Thinking of this, he immediately threw this matter to the back of his mind. His eyes flashed, and he turned to look at the voracious wolf forbidden area behind him. Judging from the fact that the 6-tailed lewd fox was shunned in the forbidden land of the greedy wolf, even if she has died, this matter should not have spread so quickly. After all, the 100 or so fierce beasts in that valley are only at the immortal realm and are not qualified to receive it. Touching the higher echelons of the forbidden lands. If that's the case, there's no need to hesitate for the second target. I have to act immediately. After this, I'll leave immediately, head to another forbidden area and continue to hunt in secret. After he finished speaking, Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer. His body swayed and instantly transformed into a ray of light. He circled around the right side of the voracious wolf forbidden area, and shot towards the center of the left side. Shoo! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out as Yi Xian entered from the edge of the forbidden area that was close to the center. He walked straight ahead at an extremely fast speed. Other than the 6-tailed fox from before, there were 9 other emperors in the forbidden area. These 9 emperors were gathered in 2 large areas. One was slightly left of the center of the forbidden area, the other was slightly right of the center. In the right region there were 5 emperors. Their hibernating nests formed a ring, surrounding the strongest being of greedy wolf forbidden land, which was the 5th level universe night sub-blood greedy wolf. In the middle, Yi Xian gave up on this area. Naturally because of the sub-blood greedy wolf. He chose the central area slightly left of the forbidden area. In the center of this area was the other knight of the forbidden area, the space-ripped demon tiger. However, even though this space-ripped demon tiger was also a knight, he was only level 2. Even if Yi Xian was stopped by him, he wouldn't be afraid. In this central area, the space-ripped demon tiger's star layers were located at the center. The other 4 emperors of the greedy wolf star field had their star layers in an irregular shape, surrounding it. The 4 stars just happened to be the 4 corners of this irregular quadrilateral. These 4 corners were closest to the space-ripped demon tiger's star layers. The furthest one was close to 10 billion miles away. Without a doubt, Yi Xian's choice was the furthest, close to 10 billion miles away from the Emperor star. The reason for this was to ensure that nothing would go wrong. After all, the space-ripped demon tiger was a knight. The further he chose his target, the safer it would be. In truth, the furthest one from the space-ripped demon tiger's star layers, close to 10 billion miles away, wasn't the weakest of the 4 emperors in the central area. Instead, he was the strongest. He was already level 7 emperor. This caused Yi Xian to be somewhat speechless. He almost decided to give up on this target and instead chose another target that was closer to the sky-splitting demon void, but whose cultivation was only at the 3rd level of the Immortal Emperor stage. However, he eventually gave up on this idea and decided to go for this level 7 Emperor level 100 demon bug. After all, even if the other party had the strength of a 7th order Immortal Emperor, as long as Yi Xian used the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the Devil Ape a few more times, it wouldn't be a problem for him to instantly kill the other party. And if he chose a weaker being, the moment he made a move, his aura would be exposed and he would be sensed by the Space Rip Demon Tiger in the central area. As a result, the distance between them became extremely important to whether Yi Xian would be able to easily escape. After weighing the pros and cons, he felt that it was better to stay further away from the Space Rip Demon Tiger. Xiu. With this thought in mind, Yi Xian maintained a perfect mental force secret technique, restrained all of the energy in his body, and silently moved through the air at an extremely fast speed. In a short 3 days, he was already close to the nest of the 100-legged demon worm. The star layers were only 100 million miles away. From this moment on, he slowed down a little. At the same time, he carefully spread out his divine sense and probed towards the 100-legged demon worm's nest star in front of him. In just a few short breaths of time, Yi Xian's divine sense entered this enormous star with a light blue atmosphere. He quickly captured a powerful Emperor Realm aura. Chapter 44:21. The centipede was at the 7th level of Emperor level, so Yi Xian would have to be at least at the 8th level of Emperor level if he wanted to kill it instantly. And just to be safe, it would be best for him to be at the 9th level of Emperor level. In order to reach the peak of the 9th rank, he needed to use the 5th transformation of the 9 transformation demonic ape bloodline ability. Hence, in the 5th transformation, his power would be at the half-night level, and his body would be at the 1,000-foot-long level. It wouldn't be a problem for him to kill the centipede with one punch. Of course, if he performed the 8th transformation of 9 Devil Ape bloodline technique, he would instantly have the power of a 3rd-level Universe Knight, and killing the centipede would be even easier. But doing so would be like using a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. To Yi Xian, it would do more harm than good. This time, the final result would be exposed, and it would attract the attention of the 2nd-level Night-level Rift Demonic Tiger. In this way, if Yi Xian were to reveal the strength of a 3rd-order Venerable, once news of this spread after the battle, regardless of whether it was the Greedy Wolf Forbidden Area or the other forbidden areas in the surroundings, the degree of importance they would place on him would be completely different. This would be extremely disadvantageous for Yi Xian's subsequent secret hunting operation. However, if he only exposed his power as a half-night level, it would be completely different. At the very least, a half-step knight wasn't enough to attract the attention of the Universe Knights and even the Universe Masters who were overseeing the various supreme forbidden lands in the vicinity. Since it was a secret hunting operation, the goal was to make a fortune silently. If he could not expose his power as a knight level, he would try his best not to expose it. This way it would have the effect of numbing the enemy and buy more time for this operation. Perhaps by the time the Universe Knights and Universe Masters in the forbidden lands around it realized Yi Xian's true power, he would have already collected the blood essence of the Emperor level, and he would have floated away and disappeared without a trace. This would be the best outcome. Xiu. His body was like a stream of light streaking across space, and the last 100 million miles of space was quickly left behind by him. Without any hesitation, Yi Xian plunged headfirst into the beast star with the light blue atmosphere. After entering the star, he changed direction and rushed toward a huge black canyon. The level 7 Emperor level centipede was hibernating in this black canyon. Previously, Yi Xian had used his spirit power to secretly enter the canyon, and had already determined its location. Wang. Who is it? Show yourself. Just as they arrived in the air above the black canyon, before Yi Xian could activate the 5th transformation of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, an incomparably deep buzzing sound suddenly came from the depths of the canyon below. Then a gloomy voice sounded, as if it was right beside Yi Xian's ears. His expression changed. Without a doubt, he had been discovered. However, he didn't remove the perfect vibration of the mental power god art. He was still protected by the powerful mental power. A trace of doubt flashed through Yi Xian's mind, but he quickly understood. All of this was because his target this time was a powerhouse from the insect clan. Ordinary space beasts and human powerhouses couldn't detect Yi Xian's spirit power with their spirit power. Only the insect clan had all kinds of special biological waves that could detect spirit power. Of course, if Yi Xian's cultivation base was higher than his opponent's, he wouldn't have been detected. The key was that he was only in the first transformation of 9 Devil Ape, and his cultivation base was only at level 5 Emperor level, which was weaker than his opponent's. Therefore, as soon as he arrived above the Abyss Canyon, his aura was immediately detected. Naturally, it was understandable. Ruthless. At this moment, as Yi Xian's presence was exposed, and he didn't appear as soon as the other party reprimanded him, the centipedes in the Black Abyss Canyon below had clearly realized that something was wrong and knew that this was the invasion of an external enemy. Screech! An incomparably shrill roar sounded immediately, and then a huge black demonic insect that was 1,000,000 feet long rushed up from the Abyss Canyon below like a small continent. This fellow was pitch black and looked somewhat similar to a silkworm. It had 2 rows of short legs under its abdomen, and all of them were extremely thick. Its entire body was covered with sharp spikes, and it looked extremely ferocious. It gave people a feeling that they didn't know where to start. At this moment, as the 100-legged demon worm turned into a black light and shot into the sky, the strength of a rank 7 titled emperor suddenly spread out from its body. There was even a strange energy fluctuation that was accompanied by an even lower, high-frequency buzzing sound. It suddenly spread out and enveloped Yi Xian's entire body. This was obviously the biological frequency of the 100-feet devil's foot that was like a bloodline talent. It immediately broke through the perfect mental force secret technique that Yi Xian had used. At this moment, Yi Xian's 300-meter-tall violent ape figure appeared, and the aura he emitted was that of a level 5 Emperor-level cultivator. Huh! A level 5 Emperor-level starry sky violent ape? I've never heard of such an existence in the few forbidden areas nearby. As Yi Xian's figure appeared, the centipede's voice with a dense and soft aura quietly sounded at this moment. Compared to his previous bewilderment, he was obviously more relaxed now, and there was even a sense of contempt and disdain in his tone. But it doesn't matter where you come from. Since you dared to sneak into this Emperor's star nest, you should be prepared to be annihilated. Be prepared. Obviously, this was because the other party was certain that he could firmly kill Yi Xian. This was normal. Although a level 5 Emperor-level cultivator wasn't weak, he was 2 levels weaker than a level 7 Emperor-level cultivator. It was natural for him to be crushed. Screech. Hey Ant, are you going to submit yourself, kneel on the ground, or do you want this Emperor to capture and even kill you? You choose for yourself. Raising its head and letting out another roar, the centipede slowly climbed up. Soon it was even higher than Yi Xian, and was already close to the light blue atmosphere of the ferocious beast star. At this moment, he was looking down at Yi Xian with a condescending attitude. His sense of superiority wasn't just the slightest bit strong. Of course, the reason for this was obviously to prevent Yi Xian from turning around and escaping. After all, there was only a difference of 2 levels between them. If Yi Xian had some powerful bloodline secret technique, there was still a possibility that he could escape when he was unprepared. Yes. Unfortunately, since Yi Xian had taken the initiative to come here, there was naturally no possibility of him turning around and escaping. Facing this overconfident centipede, he shook his head and sighed. Then he roared, 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 5th transformation. Roar. Chapter 44-22. Demonic ape 9 changes. 5th change. Roar. Following this earth-shattering roar, Yi Xian's 300-meter-tall violent ape body immediately expanded rapidly. In less than half a breath of time, it had already reached a size of 3 million meters. Compared to the 100-legged demon insect of the same size in the sky, it wasn't the slightest bit weaker. At the same time, the energy in his body started to climb rapidly to the peak of the 9th stage of the Undying Emperor level, which meant that he was a half-step universe knight. This scene was like a drama. In the blink of an eye, the space-raging ape, which was just like an ant a moment ago, had become a half-step universe knight that even he had to look up to and fear. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the 100-legged demon in the sky was dumbstruck. His eyes widened as he blankly stayed in the air above Yi Xian's head. His entire mind rumbled. For a moment he actually forgot to react. This was not surprising. Everything had changed too quickly. Anyone who was caught off guard in such a situation would be dazed for a few moments. However, these few moments were enough to decide the life and death of a great being at the level of an emperor. Go to hell. Roar. At this moment, as the demonic ape 5 changes stabilized, Yi Xian's eyes flashed coldly. Without any hesitation, he murmured in a low voice. Then he roared furiously, and his body shot up into the sky like a shooting star. He shot up rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he was right below the centipede. With a punch, even the void cracked. A terrifying aura that was so majestic that it made one's hair stand on end enveloped the centipede's body. At this moment, it was as if he had suddenly fallen into a swamp. It was as if a heavy mountain was pressing down on his back. He could not move at all. A strong sense of life and death crisis hit. The centipede, who was still in a daze with a buzzing sound in his head, trembled. Then a burning light flashed in his eyes, and he came back to his senses in an instant. Tiger-splitting night. Beg me. In the next moment, the scorching light in the centipede's eyes turned into intense fear and despair without any suspense. However, he did not give up struggling. Although his body could not move, the voice of his divine sense quickly spread out under the shroud of a strange ripple that was extremely low but extremely fast. In an instant, it rushed out of this ferocious beast star. The light blue atmosphere spread in the void space outside. At the most critical moment of life and death, the centipede used his bloodline talent again. Using this unique and strange wave frequency, he called for help from the space-splitting demon tiger, who was 10 billion miles away. 10 billion miles was a long distance, but it was not too far for emperors, especially late-stage emperors at the 7th stage of the undying level. Especially for the centipede at this moment, when he was in a life and death crisis, not only did he use this strange wave frequency bloodline talent, but he also used all his strength to activate it at all costs. With all these factors combined, his signal for help would spread out at the fastest speed possible. According to Yi Xian's prediction, in less than 2 or 3 breaths, the space-splitting demon tiger, who had the cultivation base of a second-order venerable, would be able to tear through the void space. He had reached this place. Boom! Almost at the same moment when the centipede sent out his signal for help, the violent star ape threw a punch like a rocket and landed directly under the centipede's abdomen. A huge roar sounded, and the huge body of the centipede exploded into a dark green blood mist in an instant. In the sky above the light blue atmosphere of this star, it was as if the most violent hurricane had suddenly swept up. Clouds. The layer was instantly emptied, and even the light blue atmosphere above was blown away by the wind, creating ripples. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, Yi Xian immediately waved his hand, and an invisible force spread out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it had shrouded the void space within a radius of 10 million miles and swept up all the dark green blood mist that had just spread out. After absorbing it into his body, he immediately sent it into the Shenong cauldron and threw it into the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space inside the cauldron. This centipede's cultivation base had reached the 7th stage of the undying level, which was the late stage of the undying level. At this moment, all the dark green blood mist that had appeared after his body exploded was swept up without leaving out a single bit. Because of this, Yi Xian was very happy even though there had been a slight accident before this battle. In his opinion, the centipede had been killed, and all the dark green blood mist that had appeared after his body exploded had been collected. Could be said that everything was over. He only needed to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability and leave this place in an instant. Even if the space-splitting demonic tiger arrived in the next instant, it would be meaningless to him. However, at this moment, just as Yi Xian was about to order the devouring system in his body to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability and escape, an unexpected change suddenly occurred. The tiger-splitting star, the planet where the space-splitting demonic tiger lived, was 10 billion miles away from the light blue atmosphere planet, where the centipede was hibernating. 10 billion miles away, even if the centipede used the strange bloodline talent of biological wave frequency and fully activated it. If he wanted to send his distress signal to the tiger-splitting star, which was 10 billion miles away, and the space-splitting demonic tiger received the message, he would need 2 to 3 breaths of time to rush over. Just as Yi Xian had predicted, it would need 2 to 3 breaths of time. Unfortunately, when Yi Xian entered the centipede's lair planet, the space-splitting demonic tiger came out of the tiger-splitting star due to other matters. And the direction he was heading in happened to be in the same direction as the centipede's lair planet. When Yixian's fist smashed towards the 100-legged demon insect, forcing him to pay the price. At the critical moment of life and death, he used his bloodline to send out a distress signal. The demonic void tiger was only 2 billion kilometers away from this fierce beast star, with a light blue atmosphere. Compared to the original distance of 10 billion miles, it was 80% shorter. Therefore, when the space-splitting demonic tiger received the distress signal, Yixian had just punched the centipede. Chapter 44:23. Hong! Long! Long! Roar! Leave your life, you ant! Just as Yixian was about to activate his interstellar coordinate jump ability and flee, a deafening explosion reverberated tens of millions of miles to his right. A crack tore open in space, and a black demonic tiger with a body size of 10 million feet emerged from the crack. He rushed out. The moment he appeared, he raised his head and let out a furious roar. His furious roar reverberated throughout the entire space. The entire planet below him cracked open. Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. It was as though the world was about to be destroyed. This was a gigantic planet, yet it was destroyed by a single roar from the intruder. It crumbled into star fragments. One could see how powerful the intruder was. At the same time, an incomparably powerful aura enveloped Yixian's entire body. This was the pressure of a universe sovereign. If it wasn't for the fact that Yixian had already sensed the power of a universe sovereign while in the 8th transformation of the devil ape, he would have been stunned for a moment when he was suddenly enveloped by this kind of pressure. Seeing this, Yixian's expression changed slightly. He was not afraid of this space-ripping demonic tiger at all. If he really wanted to fight, Yixian was 100% sure that he could kill this opponent. However, that would require a certain amount of time. With this delay, the other universe knight in the greedy wolf star area, who was a 5th-stage subblood greedy wolf, would definitely be able to make it here. After all, this space-ripping demonic tiger alone had taken more time than Yixian had expected. Yixian had originally thought that it would take at least 2 to 3 breaths to arrive. Who would have thought that it would only take half a breath to tear through space and arrive here? The speed of its reaction had far exceeded Yixian's expectations. This made him very uneasy. Now that this space-ripping demonic tiger had arrived, what if the other subblood greedy wolf did the same thing? Today's situation would be extremely unfavorable. Even if Yixian was still able to escape with his interstellar jump ability in the end, in the face of the pressure from the 2 universe knights, if Yixian wanted to successfully activate his interstellar coordinate jump ability and leave, then he would have to increase his own cultivation before leaving. He had to become a universe knight. That would undoubtedly expose his true strength in advance, which would be extremely disadvantageous for his subsequent actions. Roar! Just as he was thinking, the void-ripping demonic tiger roared and roared again from tens of millions of miles away. See la la. This time, following his furious roar, the space above Yixian's head once again split open into a huge spatial rift. An invisible force traversed tens of millions of kilometers in an instant, directly tearing through the void. This was one of the abilities of the void-ripping demonic tiger. It was related to its bloodline talent. Its roar had some kind of mysterious power. Not to mention huge planets, even the void could be torn apart by its roar. Boom! Yixian immediately activated the interstellar coordinate jump ability in his body. Across the distant void, he attacked the roaring rift demonic tiger. Although he was not displaying the cultivation level of a universe knight, he was still at the peak of the 9th stage of the Emperor realm, which was half a step away from becoming a universe knight. Although this level of power was not a match for the void-ripping demonic tiger, he was still qualified to fight it head-on. Yixian punched out. He was not trying to injure his opponent. He was just trying to confuse his opponent. Generally speaking, when facing an opponent who was far more powerful than him, he would still risk his life to attack. This was definitely the case when he was forced into a desperate situation and did not have any means to escape. Yixian did this to cover up his interstellar coordinate jump ability. He did not want this ability to be exposed. It would also alert the void-ripping demonic tiger, which would affect their subsequent actions. Roar! As he punched out, the void-ripping demonic tiger's eyes shone with a hint of disdain, seemed to be mocking Yixian. At the same time, it let out a shocking roar. Along with the roar, A formless power rushed toward Yixian. At this moment, the interstellar coordinate jump ability of the engulfing system in his body had been activated. He could jump at any time. At this moment, his divine sense was activated to the maximum. He felt the formless power rushing toward him. When it was about to reach him, he immediately unleashed all the power in his body and rapidly retreated. In the blink of an eye, Yixian's body rolled backward like a meteor. He even spat out a mouthful of blood. However, with a wave of his hand, he sucked the blood back into his body. When facing an opponent of this level, not a single drop of blood could be left behind. Otherwise, it was highly possible that the opponent had some kind of secret technique that could allow him to use this drop of blood to make many arrangements. Of course, all of this was fake. It was a trick that Yixian had used to confuse his opponent. At this moment, as he was heavily injured and retreated, his figure also staggered back into the crack in the void that was torn apart by the roar of the space-splitting demonic tiger. The space crack was filled with endless space turbulence. This time, the body of the violent ape of starry sky was actually torn apart by a few small space turbulence. However, not a single drop of blood was left behind. All of it was absorbed into Yixian's body. At this moment, just as his body fell into the void crack, Yixian no longer hesitated. He immediately ordered the engulfing system in his body to launch an interstellar coordinate jump. As for the coordinates that the jump locked onto, it was near the nesting star that had nurtured his strongest doppelganger. Whoosh! A faint sound of something breaking through the void could be heard. As the jump ability was launched, Yixian's body disappeared into the void crack. At this moment, his body was surrounded by a large amount of turbulence. At this moment, the demonic tiger was still more than 20 million kilometers away. From his angle and distance, Yixian's figure was clearly being directly swallowed by the endless turbulence in the void that was like an ocean within the crevice. Whoosh! Just as Yixian's body disappeared, a faint sound of something breaking through the void suddenly rang out. The void-ripping demonic tiger's body was close to the void crack. He did not enter the crack because the crack was slowly closing. Once he entered, the crack would completely close. Then, even he would not be able to find the way back. It was very likely that he would be lost in the endless turbulence of the void. Because he would be completely lost. Humph! Little ant, how dare you come to my voracious wolf forbidden area to take advantage of me? Consider yourself lucky that you were lost in the turbulence of the void. Otherwise, if you fell into my hands, I would definitely make you suffer a fate worse than death. The void-ripping demonic tiger snorted coldly and muttered a few words. With a wave of its front claws, it directly smoothed the void crack, completely cutting off the possibility of the violent ape of stars that had fallen into the crack escaping and finding the way back. Chapter 44-24. Shio! The sound of air breaking resounded, and Yixian's body appeared in the space. He didn't fall into the space crack at all. Instead, he activated his interstellar coordinate jump ability the moment he fell in, deceiving the space-splitting demonic tiger. This way, not only did he not expose his jumping ability, but he also made the space-splitting demonic tiger mistakenly believe that he had fallen into the space crack and died in the endless space turbulence. This result was simply perfect. Compared to Yixian's original plan, he was much more satisfied. This way, it was as if he had taken action twice in the greedy wolf forbidden area and obtained 2 pieces of emperor blood essence. However, there was no effect at all. That space-splitting demonic tiger would never pay attention to a half-step night-level space berserk ape that was destined to fall. All of this was originally unlikely to happen. It was basically unrealistic to try to deceive a universe knight. The reason why it was completed was partly because Yixian's acting skills were considered passable. After entering the space crack, he deliberately let a few smaller space cracks cut his body, making him look battered and exhausted. This scene was seen more than 10 million miles away by the space-splitting demonic tiger. When the space-splitting demonic tiger saw it, he naturally didn't think much of it. Of course, more importantly, the space-splitting demonic tiger would never have thought that Yixian would have such a magical ability. He could actually jump and leave in an instant without any space ripples. Even the space-splitting demonic tiger couldn't capture it. At this moment, as his body appeared, Yixian immediately let out a sigh of relief. He was released from the space-splitting demonic ape's 5th transformation, and still transformed into the 30 meters tall space berserk ape. This way, his cultivation level and strength were also thus dropped to the 4th level of Emperor level. As for the wounds that he deliberately let a few smaller space turbulence scratch his body when he fell into the space crack, they had already healed. With Yi Xian's terrifying blood energy in the space-splitting demonic ape's 5th transformation, such a small wound was extremely small. It was simply insignificant. At this time, only a dozen breaths had passed since he absorbed the majestic black-green chi, and blood formed after the body of the centipede exploded into his body and sent it to the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the Shenong tripod domain to start the blood essence condensation. After all, this was a Thear-cranked martial artist's physical body. It was different from the rest. In just a few dozen breaths of time, it was obvious that Zhang Yi was not able to complete the refinement. Yi Xian wasn't in a hurry, and he didn't leave either. He immediately used the perfect oscillation spiritual power secret technique to conceal his entire body and all his aura. Then he waited in the void just like that. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, Yi Xian opened his eyes and a bright light flashed through them. Swish! With a flip of his hand, Yi Xian opened his right palm, revealing a dark green vicious beast blood essence. It exuded a thick emperor aura, and it was a late-stage emperor at that. This emperor blood essence's quality was excellent, but it wasn't the best. However, Yi Xian was already very satisfied with it. Just like the blood essence condensed from the 6-tailed lewd fox's body, this emperor blood essence also retained the characteristics of the centipede. It was dark green in color. However, this time, Yi Xian was already mentally prepared, so he didn't feel too conflicted. After flipping his hand again and putting away the second emperor blood essence, Yi Xian pondered for a moment, and a bright light flashed through his eyes. He murmured softly, "After the 2 previous battles, I've completely refined the surge of power after the previous breakthrough. So it's time for a new breakthrough. After this breakthrough, I'll continue to hunt." After making up his mind, he immediately got up and shot toward the void on his right. In his memory, there was an abandoned star in this direction that could be used for a breakthrough. Soon, Yi Xian arrived at the abandoned star and entered the core of the star. He immediately took out the Shenong cauldron, but it was shrunk to the size of 100,000 feet. Then with a leap, he went to the mouth of the Shenong cauldron, which was shrouded in 9-colored fog, and sat down cross-legged. He sat down. The next moment a cold light flashed in his eyes. With a wave of his hand, a large number of faint sounds of breaking through the air rang out. He took out various top-grade cultivation resources from the undying world in his body one after another, including the peak 8-colored divine medicine that he had just refined not long ago, the all-evil origin liquid, and other rare top-grade precious materials and medicines. This time, among the resources he had prepared for a breakthrough, there was also a large piece of flesh and blood of a quasi-desolation almighty being. It was roasted into a golden color by the Shenong 8-colored flames. Then, he fully activated the field of the Shenong cauldron in his body. Under the suppression of the field of the treasure cauldron, all the cultivation resources in front of him were turned into a small round bead in the blink of an eye. After doing all this, Yi Xian opened his mouth and swallowed the small bead into his stomach. Soon it turned into a warm current that flowed down his throat and rushed to the 4 limbs of his body. Walala! Boom! The moment the warm current spread, the sound of chains rattling could be heard. To Yi Xian's surprise, there were actually 2 shackles in his body this time. From this moment on, Yi Xian's body seemed to have been turned upside down. The loud rattling sound of chains did not stop for even a second. The blazing energy that had just formed flowed along the veins in his body, constantly shaking the new shackle that had just appeared. Chain. Yi Xian had completely forgotten about the existence of time. He focused his mind and focused on following the cultivation path of the ancient Dongshu technique. His divine sense carried the surging and boundless river of energy within his body, as it cycled through his meridians time and time again. Circulation. During this process, while refining the energy river in his body, he was also accumulating as much energy as possible to break through the shackles of the shackles again. Time passed slowly. Even Yi Xian himself did not know how long had passed. When this energy river was completely refined and disappeared into Yi Xian's bones and meridians, the true essence in his body was obviously stronger than before. Big. Without any hesitation, Yixian immediately pushed his divine sense to the extreme and immediately launched a new round of impact. Zheng! Zheng! A loud sound of metal clashing rang out. The shackles that appeared in his body broke. Almost in the next moment, the familiar system prompt sounded in his mind, and it was 2 times in a row. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu tactics. Current realm. 5th Order Emperor Immortal. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the physical body's qi and blood. Current realm. 5th Order Emperor Immortal. 5th Order Emperor. This time Yixian welcomed the long-awaited 2 consecutive breakthroughs. It could be said that after entering the Emperor realm, this kind of situation rarely happened. He did not expect to unexpectedly encounter it today. Chapter 44-25. After another breakthrough, Yixian's cultivation had already reached the 5th Order Emperor realm under normal human conditions. But now he had activated the Devil Ape's bloodline and transformed into a star Devil Ape that was 30 meters tall. As a result, his cultivation had increased by a level, reaching the 6th Order Emperor realm. If he entered the 8th transformation of the 9 transformation demonic ape, his peak battle power would rise to 5th Order Universe Knight. Moreover, in the 8th transformation, the blood and energy within the body of the true Devil Ape would be so majestic that it would make one's hair stand on end. Therefore, in that state, Yixian could even suppress a 6th Order Venerable. He could even fight against a 7th Order Venerable. The strongest warrior in the Greedy Wolf Forbidden Area was only a 5th level Universe Knight. The current Yixian could definitely kill him in a single battle. However, if he were to add in the 2nd Order Venerable Space-Splitting Demonic Tiger, it wouldn't be that simple. If he wanted to kill these 2 Universe Knights at the same time, Yixian would have to possess at least the battle prowess of a Universe Knight at the 7th level or above. 5th Order Emperor Realm? If that's the case, there are still 4 more minor breakthroughs before I reach the pinnacle of the 9th Order Undying Emperor. Then it's time to swallow a level 25 Supreme Treasure Pill. After putting away the Shenong Cauldron, Yixian's eyes flashed with surprise. Then he subconsciously frowned. Instantly, he felt the pressure become heavier. To him, breaking through 4 minor breakthroughs did not take long. If it was like before and he was lucky enough to encounter 2 consecutive breakthroughs, 2 shackles would appear in his body. Then, he would only have to go into seclusion twice. Even if there was only 1 shackle, he would only have to go into seclusion 4 times. After that, he would need to swallow a level 25 Supreme Treasure Pill. Otherwise, his cultivation level would be stagnant. Now, not to mention 1 Supreme Treasure Pill, he had only collected 2 of the most important blood essences required to refine a level 25 Supreme Treasure Pill. He was still far from it. If I use 5 blood essences to refine, there might only be 1 level 25 Supreme Treasure Pill in the end. If I use 6 to 7 blood essences to refine, there will definitely be 2 level 25 Supreme Treasure Pills in the end. If I use more than 8 blood essences, there will be at least 3. If that's the case, even though we urgently need a level 25 Venerable Elixir now, it's not worth it to rush to refine it after we've gathered 5 of them. The Emperor bestowed pellet is too difficult to obtain. After all, there are only so many Emperor bestowed pellets. It seems that even if we urgently need a level 25 Venerable bestowed pellet, we shouldn't start refining it immediately after collecting 5 drops of Emperor bestowed blood essence. It's best to collect more than 8 of them before condensing them. This way, at least 3 25 Venerable ones will be produced. After saying that, Yixian faintly sighed and shook his head with a bitter smile. I haven't even gathered 5 of them yet, and I only have 2 right now. If I want to gather 8 of them before condensing them, there are still 6 left. This mission is very difficult, and time is of the essence. I can't afford to waste any more time. After making up his mind, he didn't hesitate anymore. With a flash of his body, he headed straight for the Milky Way star sector. This time, he wasn't heading to the Greedy Wolf star sector. He had just fought there, so it wasn't a good time to go there. Otherwise, accidents might happen. Although the space-tearing Devil Tiger knew that the half-step Supreme Space-Violent Ape that went to the Greedy Wolf star sector had died in the space turbulence, it was still 2 Undying Emperors who had died at the same time. There were only 10 Undying Emperors in the entire Greedy Wolf star sector. It was a huge loss, so the Greedy Wolf star sector had to be on guard. This time, Yixian was heading to another forbidden area in the space to the left of the Greedy Wolf forbidden area. Traveling at full speed, it took a day and a half before a silver plate-shaped star field could be seen in the distance. However, it would take another day to reach it. It was so far away that he didn't have to worry about being discovered. Therefore, Yixian traveled at full speed. However, he was still under the protection of the perfect vibration spiritual energy technique. Half a day later, an extremely powerful energy wave came from the space to the right. Yixian had sensed this energy when he was in the 8th transformation of the demon ape, so he was very familiar with it. It was the energy of a universe knight. The space to the right was all around the Greedy Wolf forbidden area. Now, the terrifying energy of a universe knight came from that direction. There was no doubt that it was either the space-tearing devil tiger or the other knight in the forbidden area, who was a 5th-level knight. It was the subblood Greedy Wolf. Judging from this energy, it should be more than a 2nd-level knight. It should be the subblood Greedy Wolf. A light flashed in Yixian's eyes. He didn't hesitate any longer. His figure flashed as he directly charged to the left. He directly hid in an unremarkable abandoned star and restrained all of his aura. Very quickly, the figure of an enormous gray-necked greedy wolf appeared in the distance to the right. It was alone and didn't head towards Yixian. Instead, it charged out of the edge of the greedy wolf star region and directly shot towards the left. It left. After it left, Yixian rushed out of the abandoned star. He hid his energy and followed it from afar. He didn't dare to get too close. He kept a distance of hundreds of millions of miles between them. He only made sure that he could feel a trace of the other party. Just its energy was enough. Another 2 days passed in this manner, and they had already passed the border of the voracious wolf forbidden area. However, this subblood wolf still had no intention of stopping, and it was still rushing forward. It was obviously on a long journey. If there were no accidents, it should be heading to a forbidden area further away. It would take at least a few days to reach that forbidden area, and the subblood greedy wolf was in such a hurry. Obviously, it had something important to do. It would most likely stay there for a while. In that case, the greedy wolf forbidden area only has 1 level 2 universe sovereign realm void-tearing demonic tiger, and 8 emperor undyings left. As this thought flashed through his mind, Yixian immediately stopped moving. His eyes flickered incessantly, and even his breathing became hurried. This is a heaven-sent opportunity. If everything goes smoothly, not only will we be able to obtain 8 in one go, but we will also be able to obtain 8 in one go. A titled Emperor's Blood Essence or even a Venerable One's Blood Essence. Chapter 44-26. On the way to the second target, the Forbidden Area, Yixian accidentally bumped into the subblood greedy wolf. He followed behind it for nearly 3 days until he confirmed that the subblood greedy wolf was heading to a further forbidden area. Just by arriving there, it would take a few more days before he stopped. After thinking for a while, Yixian changed his original plan. He planned to return to the greedy wolf forbidden land and kill the space-tearing devil tiger first before dealing with the other 8 undying emperors. This was a wonderful opportunity, one that could not be missed and would not come again. After making up his mind, he did not hesitate and ordered the devouring system in his body to activate the interstellar coordinate jump ability. As for the locked jump point, it was still near the source nest star that had nurtured his strongest doppelganger. Right now, he had been following the subblood greedy wolf for 3 days. If he were to turn around and head back to the greedy wolf star area, he would need 4 days to get there. On the other hand, if he directly launched a jump and returned to the nesting star where his strongest doppelganger was, it would only take him 2 days to rush to the voracious wolf forbidden land from there. Hence there was no need to choose. He jumped immediately. Xiao! Yixian's figure instantly appeared at the edge of the source nest star. He didn't hesitate in the slightest and immediately activated the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape, entering the 3rd transformation. Before he broke through, he needed to enter the 5th transformation to have the power of a complete level 9 undying emperor with a body of 3 million feet. But now, as he had broken through 2 levels, he only needed to enter the 3rd transformation to reach the same power and size. Yixian had considered the reason why he decided to enter the greedy wolf forbidden land with his current size and power. If he entered voracious wolf forbidden area as a universe knight, It would arouse the suspicion of the void-splitting demon ape. After all, Yi Xian should have died in the space turbulence, but now not only did he come back alive, but he also reached the universe night level in such a short time. He would definitely be suspicious. Once that was the case with his venerable realm cultivation, if he wanted to escape, Yi Xian might not be able to stay behind if the other party was prepared. After all, he was only a level 5 knight at the 8th transformation, which was only 3 levels higher than the space-tearing devil tiger. If he wanted to kill the space-tearing devil tiger and prevent it from escaping, he had to rely on a plan. Otherwise, there would be unforeseen circumstances. A level 9 Undying Emperor was a half-step knight, and his speed was much faster than before. Besides, Yi Xian had gone back and forth many times, so he was very familiar with the star path and could teleport from time to time. Just like that, it only took them a day to arrive at the edge of the voracious wolf forbidden area. Without hesitation, he rushed into the greedy wolf forbidden land and rushed to the star field on the left side of the center. The star field on the left side of the center was the space-tearing devil tiger's territory. He was in the center, and there were 4 ferocious beast planets around him. One of the 4 emperors had been killed by Yi Xian, and he was the strongest one. Yi Xian hit his body and restrained his aura. He was heading to the weakest of the 3 remaining emperors. This emperor was only a level 3 emperor, which was only 1 level higher than the 6-tailed perverted fox. However, he should have a close relationship with the space-tearing devil tiger. Otherwise, the space-tearing devil tiger wouldn't have arranged for him to stay on the Den star, which was closest to him. Chan was on this ferocious beast planet, which was only 1 billion miles away. This guy was the closest to the space-tearing devil tiger, but his cultivation was the weakest. He was only a level 3 emperor and he was also a tiger. However, he wasn't a space-tearing devil tiger, but a demon-flying tiger. He must be a distant relative of the space-tearing devil tiger. You know, although Yi Xian had just been here, he had fallen into a space crack. According to the space-tearing devil tiger's knowledge, he should have died in the endless space turbulence. Hence, although the space-tearing devil tiger knew about the 6-tailed perverted fox's death, he wasn't alarmed. A few days ago, after roaring at the subblood greedy wolf, he didn't do anything else. Because of this, all the ferocious beasts in the greedy wolf forbidden land had been cautious recently. They didn't dare to wander around the space without any reason. They didn't want to provoke the 2 knights, which could lead to disaster. Under these circumstances, Yi Xian smoothly arrived at the lair star where Emoji Feihu was hibernating. After arriving, he didn't hesitate in the slightest and immediately plunged into the atmosphere of the fierce beast star. After passing through the atmosphere, a mountain and river appeared in his field of vision. At the end of the mountain range in the distance, a demon-flying tiger was flapping its wings. Its entire body was black, and on its back was a pair of bone wings, and the aura emitted from his body was impressively at the 3rd level of the immortal emperor level. This was the real deal. There was no doubt about it. Not only was he Yi Xian's prey, but he was also the bait used by Yi Xian to lure the space-tearing devil tiger out. Furthermore, according to Yi Xian's deductions, the relationship between this demon G flying tiger and the demonic tiger should be quite extraordinary. As long as Yi Xian killed it, the demonic tiger would definitely be enraged. At that time, Yi Xian would be caught off guard and instantly enter the 9 transformations of the demonic ape. The 8th transformation would give him the terrifying power of a level 5 universe knight. The probability of killing it on the spot was at least 80%. Even the chance of turning around and escaping was close to 0. Thinking of this, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. He rushed over and arrived above the mountain range. Hong! In the next instant, the violent ape of stars suddenly threw out a punch, which landed directly on Emoji Feihu's back. There was a huge roar, and Demon Flying Tiger didn't even have time to react. Its gigantic body instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist and spread out. Shoo! Without the slightest hesitation, Yi Xian immediately waved his hand. An invisible force spread out from his body, and in the blink of an eye, it enveloped an area of tens of millions of kilometers, sweeping away all of the dark red blood mist that had just spread out. After absorbing it into his body, he immediately sent it into the Shunnong cauldron, and threw it into the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space within the cauldron. This was already the third blood essence of an emperor beast. In just a few days he had gained so much, which made Yixian very excited. At the same time, a billion miles away, in the burrow star where the space-splitting demonic tiger was hibernating, the space-splitting demonic tiger, who was cultivating in seclusion in the burrow star, seemed to have suddenly sensed something. It suddenly opened its eyes, and an incomparably terrifying venerable might appeared. Pressure spread out from its body. It revealed a strong murderous intent. Chapter 44:27. Hung Long Long. Roar! Ain't you dare! Almost at the same instant that Yixian waved his hand and absorbed the dark red blood mist that exploded from Emoji Feihu's body into his body, outside the planet's atmosphere, tens of millions of kilometers to the right of the void, a huge explosion sounded out, and a crack was torn open in the void. A black demonic tiger with a body size of 10 million feet rushed out of the crack. As soon as he appeared, he raised his head and roared furiously. His furious roar reverberated through the void. This time the space-splitting demonic tiger was clearly enraged. The demonic flying tiger that he had set his eyes on was actually killed right in front of his eyes. This was simply infuriating. What was even more unacceptable to him was that the existence that had killed Emoji Feihu was actually the cosmic violent ape that he had just fought in the ravenous wolf star region, then fell into the spatial rift and was devoured by the endless spatial turbulence. This was simply too much. In just a few days, 3 emperors had fallen in the hands of the same being in the greedy wolf forbidden zone. This was clearly a slap in the face. What made the space-raging demonic tiger the most unbearable was that this guy knew that he was in charge of this place. Previously, he had almost been severely injured by his roar, and escaped by falling into the void crack. Now, he did not know what kind of luck he had, but he actually found the way back. After coming back alive, he actually did not keep a low profile and dared to continue wreaking havoc in the greedy wolf star area. He even ran to a place that was only a billion miles away from his star lair and killed Emoji Feihu on the spot. This was simply not taking him seriously at all. Roar! As this thought flashed through his mind, the space-raging demonic tiger felt suffocated in his chest. He raised his head and let out another shocking roar. In an instant, the entire star below Emoji Feihu's lair cracked. The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. It was as though the world was about to be destroyed. This was a gigantic star, but because of the furious roar of the void-splitting demonic tiger, it was instantly destroyed and shattered into star fragments. At this moment, an incomparably powerful aura enveloped Yixian's entire body. Roar! Roar! Almost at the same time, 2 earth-shattering roars came from the front left and rear right of the void. The other 2 undyings in the central starfield to the left of the greedy wolf forbidden zone were finally alerted and rushed over. These 2 emperors were both at the middle level, one at level 5 and the other at level 6. As for their forms, they were both over 1 million zhang in size. They were respectively a subblood lion and a silver beetle. The 2 monarch beasts didn't approach after arriving. Instead, they hovered in the void, one on the left and one on the right. Their auras spread out as they stood guard. The reason for this was because they were only mid-stage martial emperors. They weren't a match for a peak 9th order martial emperor. If they had rushed over, they would have been killed instantly. On the other hand, the void-ripping demonic tiger was here, and Emoji Feihu, whom he had taken a fancy to, had died a tragic death. The void-ripping demonic tiger was obviously furious, and he couldn't wait to kill the starry sky violent ape with his own hands. Hence, even if the subblood lion and the silver beetle had the strength, they didn't dare to do it on their behalf. If they did, it would undoubtedly enrage the space-raging demonic tiger again. The reason why they stood guard in the void was obviously to block Yixian's escape route. After all, he had the strength of a half-step martial emperor. If he wanted to escape, he might have a chance to do so. If that was the case, the subblood lion and the silver beetle would be able to block his escape path, and the spatial rift demonic tiger would be able to catch up to him in the shortest amount of time possible. Ant, your guts are really big. This time you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Roar! The void-ripping demonic tiger raised its head and let out a roar. The pressure of the martial highness realm in its body suddenly intensified. Due to its anger, there was a hint of mockery in its tone. It was clearly like a cat toying with a mouse. Now it's time for you to surrender. Or should I personally make a move and kill you on the spot? It seems that you feel very good about yourself. Yi Xian didn't move at all. It seemed that he was afraid, but at this moment, his divine sense revealed an incomparably relaxed feeling. Instead, he was mocking the space-raging demonic tiger. This was indeed his true performance. There was no pretense or falsehood. But in the eyes of the space-raging demonic tiger, it was clear that he was just bluffing. Even the subblood lion and the silver beetle, who were waiting in the void to the left and right in the distance, let out a mocking roar. And I have already given you a chance. If you don't want it, then go to hell. Roar. The space-raging demonic tiger didn't say anything. With a cold light in his eyes, he let out another roar. Immediately he leaped forward and pounced on Yi Xian. In the blink of an eye, he was thousands of miles away. This sentence should be given to you by me. Thousands of miles away, there was no way for the other party to escape. Thinking of this, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately raised his head and roared. 9 changes of the demonic ape, 8th change. Pung! As soon as he finished speaking, a huge explosion was heard. This time the speed at which his body expanded was much faster than before. The power in his body surged like a roaring river. His limbs and bones surged with boundless murderous intent, and a terrifying aura that was so majestic that it made one's hair stand on end gushed out. His body, which was originally only 30 meters tall, expanded at an extremely fast speed that made one's hair stand on end, in less than 3 breaths. He had already reached a height of 1 billion feet, which was equivalent to 6 million miles. This was definitely comparable to a real giant star or even greater. At the same time as his body expanded, Yi Xian's cultivation aura rose at the same speed. Within 3 breaths, he had already reached the 5th level of the Universe Knight from the 9th level of the pinnacle of the Undying Emperor realm. 5th level of the Universe Knight. And the space-raging demonic tiger, who was charging toward him, was only at the 2nd level of the Universe Knight. There was a difference of 3 small levels between the two of them. When one's level of cultivation was low, 3 small levels might not be a big deal. However, as one's level of cultivation increased, the difference of 1 small level was like heaven and earth. And now, Yi Xian and the space-raging demonic tiger were both at the Universe Knight level. In this realm, a difference of 1 small level could almost mean an absolute advantage. If there was a difference of 2 small levels, it was basically a crushing defeat. But now Yi Xian had the advantage of 3 small levels. On top of that, he had a body that was 6 million miles long and possessed a boundless amount of blood and qi. The difference in strength between the two of them had already reached 4 minor realms. Chapter 44-28. At that moment, as Yi Xian performed the 8th transformation of the bloodline technique of 9 transformations of demonic ape, his body expanded to a height of 6 million miles in an instant. He was larger than the largest star, and his blood energy was so majestic that it was terrifying. As for his cultivation level, it also skyrocketed. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the 5th level of the Universe Knight realm. If his blood energy, which was so majestic that it made people's hair stand on end, his current combat power was definitely comparable to the 6th level of the Universe Knight realm. And the space-splitting demonic tiger, who was roaring and charging toward him, was only at the 2nd level of the Universe Knight realm. The gap between him and Yi Xian was as high as 4 levels. In addition, the distance between the two of them was only 10 million miles. It was almost certain that the space-splitting demonic tiger would die. There was no suspense at all. What? 5th level knight? This is impossible. Roar. Translator. Nayarbo Studio Editor. Nayarbo Studio. Seeing this, space-ripping demon tiger's expression changed. As a powerful Universe Knight, he immediately realized how bad his situation was. At that moment, following the exclamation, he raised his head and let out a shocking roar without any hesitation. Hung long long. Sila. With this roar, the space-splitting demonic tiger apparently activated the bloodline talent in his body. With this roar, he tore open the void space. However, it was not to attack but to escape. This void space crack appeared 10 million miles above his head, and he could rush into it with just a leap. After entering the void space crack, he would have to face the endless void space turbulence, and he might even lose his way in the endless void space turbulence. It would be like being exiled, never to return. However, he still did not hesitate at all. No matter what, it was better than immediately being killed here, right? This thought flashed through his mind, and the space-splitting demonic tiger, who was terrified, jumped and tried to rush into the void space crack 10 million miles above his head. However, Yixian had already expected this move and was on guard against it. Now that he saw that it was indeed so, he immediately sneered. The voice of his spiritual sense was instantly transmitted out, revealing endless ridicule and disdain. What's going on? A moment ago you said you wanted to die. The next moment you want to tear a crack in the ground and hide in it. You space-splitting demonic tigers really know how to play. Pooh! These words were too vicious. He was a universe knight, yet he was being slandered to such an extent. Just as he was about to leap up, Rift Demon Tiger felt his chest tighten and immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. You can't just randomly spew blood. These are all useful to me. I've already reserved them. Boom! Seeing this, Yixian no longer hesitated. At the same time his spiritual sense was transmitted, his figure suddenly leaped up and directly blocked the space above the dirty-splitting demonic tiger's head, blocking its path. Then the 6 million kilometer-long violent ape roared and swung its giant fists, crouching down to attack. Roar! No! Seeing this scene, the demonic void tiger's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. It let out an earth-shattering roar, and a voice filled with unwillingness resounded through the void. However, all of this was impossible to change. He didn't even have the slightest chance to struggle when facing a Starsky violent ape that possessed a combat strength comparable to a 6th-rank Exalt Realm expert. Boom! The next moment, the Starsky violent ape suddenly threw a punch that landed directly on the back of the demonic void tiger, making a huge roaring sound. The demonic void tiger didn't even have the slightest chance to resist. His gigantic body instantly exploded into a cloud of bloody mist and spread out. Shio! Seeing this scene, Yixian suddenly felt relieved. Without any hesitation, he waved his hand immediately. A formless force spread out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it had already covered the void space within a radius of 10 million miles, sweeping in all the bloody mist that had just spread out. After absorbing all of it into his body, he immediately sent it into the Shunnong cauldron, and threw it into the flame pool at the bottom of the central region volcano in the space within the cauldron. In the blink of an eye, a 2nd-rank Exalt Realm expert had fallen, and to Yixian this was a huge gain. His own power hadn't officially broken through to the Universe Knight level yet, but he had already obtained a Knight Blood Essence. This was definitely a pleasant surprise. One had to know that even Emperor Blood Essence was so hard to find, let alone a Knight Blood Essence. In fact, even if Yixian's own power had officially broken through to the Universe Knight level, it would still be extremely difficult to kill a Universe Knight at that time. Although there were many supreme forbidden lands surrounding this Milky Way star field, there were only a few Universe Knights and Universe Masters in each of them, and every one of them was closely watched. How could it be so easy to successfully hunt and kill all of them? It could be said that this was a completely unexpected gain. It was completely due to luck. Otherwise, if that subblood greedy wolf had been here, Yixian wouldn't have had the slightest chance at all. However, although this time he had unexpectedly killed a 2nd-rank Exalt Realm Knight, which was a huge gain, it was simply a pleasant surprise. But now, everything was far from over. Now, with the annihilation of the space-tearing demon tiger, there were no more Universe Knights in this greedy wolf supreme forbidden land. To Yixian, this was definitely an excellent opportunity. In this supreme forbidden land, there were a total of 10 undying emperors. Previously, he had already killed 3 of them, and now there were only 7 left. Tens of billions of miles away in the right central star field, there were a total of 5 undying emperors. At this moment, in the left central star field where Yixian was, there were only 2 undying emperors left. And these 2 undying emperors were right in front of Yixian, one on his left and one on his right. They were only 50 to 60 million miles away from him. As long as he killed the 2 subblood lions and the silver beetles, the next thing Yixian had to do was to head to the right central star field of the greedy wolf supreme forbidden land. After killing the last 5 undying emperors, he could immediately withdraw and flee far away. Almost annihilating an elementary supreme forbidden land by himself was absolutely a shocking achievement. Even Yixian himself had never dared to think about it before. And now all of this was about to become a reality. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yixian was so excited that even his breathing became rapid. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, He immediately turned his head to look at the subblood lions and the silver beetles on his left and right sides of the void space. At this moment, these two fellows were already stunned by the scene that had just happened in front of them. An instant ago, they were still certain that Yi Xian was going to die on the spot. However, after an instant, not only did Yi Xian not die, he even transformed into a fifth-order venerable with terrifying battle prowess that could scare people to death. Furthermore, he even attacked with lightning speed, and in the blink of an eye, he blasted the demonic void tiger, who was at the second-order venerable realm, into pieces. A cloud of bloody mist. Chapter 44-29. In the blink of an eye, the space-rending demonic tiger fell, its huge body exploding into a crimson mist that was directly collected by the violent star ape. When the subblood lion and the silver beetle saw this scene, they were dumbfounded and didn't dare to move in the slightest. It wasn't that they didn't want to turn around and escape, but in the face of a fifth-order venerable star ape, even a second-order venerable like the space-rending demonic tiger couldn't withstand a single blow. What could they do with their mere mid-stage emperor cultivation? Although they were tens of millions of kilometers away now, as soon as they turned around, they would immediately die. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the subblood lion and the silver beetle trembled as they exchanged a glance. With just a single glance, they instantly reached a consensus. The next moment, the voices of the two begging for mercy rang out in the void, filled with fear and trepidation. "Lord Violent Star Ape, please spare our lives. Yes, we are willing to serve you." Roar. "Since you are willing to serve me, then offer up your bodies. What this senior wants is the body of an emperor-stage vicious beast." As soon as the two finished speaking, the violent star ape, whose body was larger than a giant planet, raised its head and roared, sending out a divine sense voice. It didn't have the slightest intention to consider and directly wanted to kill them. Hearing this, the subblood lion and the silver beetle completely understood, and a look of regret appeared on their faces. If they had known this would happen, they would have taken advantage of the opportunity to turn around and escape. At least they would have a better chance of survival. Run. Split up. In the next moment, the subblood lion and the silver beetle, who knew that there was no hope, roared at the same time, and the two of them, one on the left and one on the right, turned around and fled in different directions. "You want to escape now? Don't you think it's too late?" Yi Xian's divine sense voice sounded again, but before his voice fell, his figure had already disappeared. He had directly used void teleportation, and after a flash, he instantly blocked the silver beetle's path. The space insect race often had special bloodline talents, so when encountering such opponents, Yi Xian's first target was usually an insect race expert. Boom! As his figure appeared, the violent star ape suddenly threw out a punch without the slightest hesitation. This punch instantly fell on the silver beetle's back, causing a loud bang. The silver beetle didn't even have the chance to resist. His gigantic body instantly exploded into a cloud of silver blood mist and spread out. Xiu! Yi Xian waved his hand again, and in blood qi. In the blink of an eye, it had enveloped a radius of tens of millions of kilometers, enveloping the space's space, SSSSSSS, ants of blood essence blood. The blood essence blood was swept blood s's had blood. After doing all this, the huge body of the violent ape of stars once again flashed as it performed teleportation, disappearing in the blink of an eye. When it reappeared, it was already in the distant void nearly 200 million miles away, blocking the path of the fleeing subblood lion. Furthermore, the distance between them was less than 10 million miles. It was only 6 to 7 million miles. At such a close distance, it was simply a close combat. Not to mention the blood lion, even the space-splitting demon tiger wouldn't have the slightest chance of turning the tables. Seeing this scene, the blood lion was in complete despair. Its originally extremely fast figure suddenly came to an abrupt halt in the void. Roar! "You want to obtain this emperor's body? Dream on. Even if I die, I won't let you have it." Boom! In extreme despair, the blood lion raised its head and let out a roar of unwillingness. Then, as the voice of its divine sense spread out, this guy actually self-detonated in the void not far away, millions of kilometers away. A sky-shaking, earth-shaking boom could be heard. The space within millions of miles was torn apart by the explosive power of his self-detonation. A cloud of blood-red mist spread out, mixing with the countless space turbulence that drilled out from the cracks after the space shattered inch by inch. Rise, after all, it was a mid-stage Emperor expert who had self-detonated without regard for anything else. This kind of power was originally supposed to be unleashed. Self-detonation? Don't let this venerable succeed? This really makes people speechless. Seeing this scene in front of him, Yi Xian was stunned. After a long while, he rolled his eyes and muttered, "I didn't expect to meet such a crazy guy again. Self-detonation? It saves this star master the energy to do it himself." Whoosh! Before he finished speaking, Yi Xian had already waved his hand suddenly. In an instant, an invisible force spread out from his body with a faint sound of breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped the void within a radius of millions of kilometers. Soon, the dark red blood mist that had just spread out had been completely swept up. Yi Xian immediately took it into his body, and immediately sent it to the Shenong cauldron, throwing it into the flame pool at the bottom of the central domain volcano in the space inside the cauldron to start the blood essence condensation. At this point, Yi Xian had already killed a second-order venerable and 5 immortal emperors in the voracious wolf forbidden area. His harvest was simply enormous. Aside from the sub-blood greedy wolf that had already left and wouldn't return in the next few days, there were still 5 emperors within the forbidden land that he had to kill. These were 5 emperor-level blood essences, and now that there were no knights here, these 5 undyings were like naked girls to Yi Xian. He could take them as he pleased. Such a tempting opportunity. If he missed it, it would be completely unreasonable. There are still 5 more targets. After I finish them off, I can immediately leave. His eyes gleaming coldly, Yi Xian muttered softly, subconsciously gazing towards the space to his right. Those 5 emperors were in the central right starfield guarded by the sub-blood greedy wolf. They shouldn't have sensed the change in the starfield. After all, the core area of the Greedwolf Forbidden Zone was 40 to 50 billion miles away from the left and right star areas of the Greedwolf Forbidden Zone. Even an emperor, if he didn't push his spirit sense to the limit and extend it in a single direction, he wouldn't be able to sense the situation so far away. However, Yi Xian didn't have much time left. After all, they were 5 emperors with different bloodline talents and abilities. If they were to split up and flee, even if he was a universe knight and in existence at the 5th level of this realm, in the end, he would still have to take 5 of them. Even if he killed all 5 of them, he might not be able to guarantee a 100% success rate. Thinking about that, Yi Xian didn't hesitate anymore. Immediately turning and shooting towards the space to his right, vanishing in the blink of an eye. Chapter 44:30. Tens of billions of miles of space was nothing to a 5th-order knight. At this moment, Yi Xian was in the 8th transformation of the demonic ape. His body was 6 million miles long, which was a few times bigger than the largest natural star. His speed was extremely fast, surpassing that of a meteor as he streaked across the void. Inside his body, there was a majestic aura that made one's hair stand on end. Without a doubt, this scene immediately alarmed the entire voracious wolf forbidden land. Countless ferocious beasts in this beginner-level forbidden land all rushed out of the star layers they were in. They looked in the direction of this terrifying pressure with a horrified expression on their faces. Looking into the distance, exclamations, roars, and howls resounded like waves, one after another, resounding endlessly. What? A 5th-order knight? Where did this space-violent ape come from? It doesn't matter where it came from. The key is, what is it doing here? How dare it rampage in our forbidden zone? Look at the situation. It's obvious that it's not a friendly one. Voracious Wolf Knight is on a long journey, but Tiger Demon Knight is still guarding the forbidden zone. Why isn't there any reaction now? Could it be that he's allowed to rampage in our forbidden zone? The situation is bad. This starry sky ferocious ape with a terrifying cultivation seems to have just happened to rush over from the left starry sky where the exalted devil tiger resided. In this way, it would seem that the exalted devil tiger has probably already been killed. Hiss! A 5th-stage venerable dares to launch a massacre in my voracious wolf forbidden land? How is this possible? Howl! Howl! Along with the exclamations, 5 figures rushed out of 5 ferocious beast lairs from different directions in the starfield on the right of voracious wolf forbidden zone. Their auras were very powerful and they were all emperors. A black beetle, a 3-tailed ferocious bird, a space porcupine, a five-legged black crow, and finally a blood-red silver wolf. These 5 emperor-level ferocious beasts were the 5 fellows guarding the sub-blood-greedy wolf's nest. At this moment they were all shocked by Yixian's powerful aura, rushing out of their nests and into the universe space. All of them had terrified expressions as they looked at the raging starry sky ape that was as fast as a meteor but larger than a giant planet. They cried out in shock and bewilderment. "Violent Ape Elder, what is the meaning of this? Why are you rampaging in our forbidden zone? Which forbidden zone are you from?" Within Greedy Wolf Forbidden Area, there are Universe Knights at level 5. "Senior, don't go too far," said Luofeng. "If it's a misunderstanding, please stop immediately. Let's talk slowly. Don't hurt our friendship. Something's not right. There seems to be a huge change in the stellar region where Venerable Devil Tiger was stationed. Venerable Devil Tiger is dead. Howl!" Along with the exclamations, the last blood-red silver wolf was shocked. He activated his godly consciousness to the maximum and extended it to the starfield where sky-ripping demon tiger was guarding. He immediately discovered that something was wrong, and his expression changed drastically. He immediately reported what he had discovered with his divine sense. Then he roared at the sky, and the aura of a peaked 9th Order Great Perfection Empyrean Immortal erupted from his body. Without a doubt, this blood-red silver wolf was the most powerful being among the 5 Emperor-level Undyings in the Forbidden Zone. He was only one step away from becoming a Universe Knight. At this moment after his roar, the other 4 Emperor-level Undyings all released their powerful auras in shock and anger. They were all filled with murderous intent. Hong! There was a loud boom. The star-violent ape was right in front of the wolf. It didn't say anything and just threw a punch at the wolf's back, creating a loud boom. The half-step Venerable Blood Silver Wolf did not even have the chance to fight back. Its enormous body instantly exploded into a cloud of blood mist that dispersed into the surroundings. "Xiu!" Yixian immediately waved his hand, and an invisible force spread out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it had already enveloped an area of tens of millions of kilometers, sweeping away all of the dark red blood mist that had just spread out. After absorbing all of it into his body, he immediately sent it into the Shunnong Cauldron, and threw it into the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space within the cauldron. In the blink of an eye, a half-step knight who was a 9th Order Pinnacle Emperor had fallen. This scene caused the other 4 martial emperors to stop abruptly. In an instant they were stunned and scared silly. The pressure that had just spread out from their bodies dissipated in an instant. Their entire bodies trembled slightly. Exclamations were heard again. "What?" Attacking at the slightest disagreement. "This violent ape is too decisive in killing. We can't fight it head-on, and there's no chance for reconciliation." It didn't buy it at all and fled immediately. "My forbidden zone is in danger today. Howl!" Li. Amidst the exclamations, roars and howls resounded. These 4 emperors no longer hesitated or stayed, immediately turning and heading in different directions, swiftly shooting off into the distance. "You only want to leave now? It's too late. Today none of you will be able to escape. Howl!" Yixian's voice sounded out. The starry sky berserk ape, which was 6 million kilometers in size, raised its head and roared. Its speed instantly increased by 30%, and in the blink of an eye, it had already caught up to the 5-legged black crow. Without saying anything, it punched out. Rumble! The thunderous roar resounded again. The 5-legged black crow let out a miserable howl. Pang Da's gigantic body instantly exploded into a cloud of black blood mist. Like a hurricane, it spread out in an instant. "Xiu!" Yixian didn't even turn his head. With a wave of his hand, an invisible force spread out from his body. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped an area of tens of millions of kilometers, sweeping away all of the black blood mist that had just spread out. After absorbing it into his body, he immediately after absorbing the bloody mist, it was sent into the Shunnong Cauldron, and into the central region's volcano to refine the blood essence. Seeing this scene, the other 3 emperors were shocked, and they all let out a shrill howl. Their speed of fleeing skyrocketed again. However, all of this was futile. There was no meaning to it at all. "Xiu!" With a shake of its shoulder, the giant space violent ape disappeared. When it reappeared, it was right in front of the three-tailed beast. The latter's figure abruptly stopped in the void, and an incomparably flustered light flashed in his eyes. Almost like a conditioned reflex, it immediately begged for mercy. "Elder Violent Ape, this is just a misunderstanding, no?" Rumble. Chapter 44:31. In the blink of an eye, within 2 to 3 breaths, 3 of the 5 remaining undying emperors in Voracious Wolf Forbidden Zone had fallen. Only 1 black beetle and 1 space porcupine were left. This scene was truly too shocking. The 3 Emperor Undyings only lasted for less than 3 breaths of time in Yi Xian's hands before they were blasted into a cloud of blood mist. After they fell, they were taken away. It was not until then that the countless ferocious beasts in the surrounding void finally realized what had happened. Although they knew that greedy Wolf Knight had gone on a long journey, only a few of them had guessed the truth of Tiger Demon Knight's death. The rest were still in the dark. However, at this moment, after witnessing this mysterious space ape kill 3 emperors within 3 breaths of time, Tiger Demon Knight, who was guarding the Voracious Wolf Forbidden Area, didn't react at all. These ferocious beasts of the Forbidden Area were not fools. This abnormal situation made them realize that something was wrong in an instant. For a time, all sorts of shocked cries and howls rang out like a tidal wave. "Damn it, Tiger Demon Knight didn't show up. This is definitely abnormal. If I'm not wrong, he must have fallen long ago." No wonder this powerful raging ape didn't intend to hide at all. He didn't need to hide at all. Within the entire Voracious Wolf Forbidden Area, there's not even a single Universe Knight. To him, there's no defense at all, and he can enter a place with absolutely no one, said Luofeng. "Even if Tiger Demon Knight is here, what's the use? This Starry Sky Ape is a 5th-rank venerable. My Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land is destined to perish today. Run! Howl! Howl!" As these wild roars and cries of shock rang out, the entire Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land was thrown into chaos. In the vast space of hundreds of billions of miles, countless beasts from forbidden lands fled madly toward the outside of the Voracious Wolf Forbidden Land at an extremely high speed. They were fleeing in panic. Yi Xian wasn't interested in paying attention to all of this. Now, the only thing that could make him interested in hunting was at least an immortal emperor. Under the immortal emperor, he wouldn't be able to raise his spirits at all. Of course, since the Voracious Wolf Forbidden Area was an elementary forbidden area, there were quite a few titled emperor beasts as well. If there weren't 100 of them, there were at least 80 of them. At the moment, none of them were present. Like stray dogs, they fled in all directions. However, Yi Xian wasn't in the mood to chase after them. In front of him, there were 2 emperor-level beasts that were even more tempting. A black beetle and a space porcupine. At this very moment, these 2 fellows were also charging in different directions, one on the left and one on the right. According to Yi Xian's habits, he would naturally attack the Bug Clan first. Shio! A faint sound of the air being torn apart resounded. The enormous violent Starry Sky Ape shook its shoulders, and its figure instantly disappeared on the spot. When it reappeared, it was already 200 million miles away, and it just happened to block the path of the black beetle. Howl! At this moment, the black beetle was in complete despair. It let out an incomparably shrill shriek, and its entire body trembled violently. The aura in its body became incomparably violent. It was clearly on the verge of self-detonation. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian was stunned for a moment, then rolled his eyes. After that, his divine sense sounded out. "Self-destructing, right? Then hurry up. I can sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. I can also collect the energy and blood of your physical body after you self-destruct." Pooh! Hong! Hearing this, the black beetle was so angry that it spat out a mouthful of blood. However, the energy in its body was already extremely violent. The process of self-destruction could no longer be reversed. Damn it! As blood spurted out of his mouth, the black beetle raised his head and let out a roar of unwillingness. Then, as the voice of his divine sense spread out, he actually self-destructed in the void not too far away from him. A familiar series of booms could be heard. The space within millions of miles was torn apart by the explosive power of his self-detonation. A cloud of black blood mist spread out, mixing with the countless space turbulence that drilled out from the cracks after the space shattered inch by inch. Rise! Shio! Yi Xian was waiting for this moment. As the black mist of blood spread out, he waved his hand immediately. In an instant, an invisible strength spread out from his body with a weak sound of breaking through the air. In the blink of an eye, it had covered the void within millions of miles. The black mist of blood that had just spread out was swept up in the blink of an eye. Yixian immediately took it into his body and sent it to the Shun-known cauldron. He threw it into the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space within the cauldron, and started to condense the blood essence. At this point, there was only one emperor left in the entire voracious wolf forbidden zone, and it was the space porcupine that had escaped to the right. This space porcupine's cultivation level was neither high nor high. It was at the peak of the middle stage of the 6th stage emperor level, only one step away from the late stage emperor level. At this moment he was 200 million miles away in the right void. Due to its bloated body, the starry sky porcupine's forte was not its speed. Therefore it had no means of escaping. Facing such a life or death situation, he actually didn't have any bloodline ability or talent that he could use. The only way to deal with it was to run forward while gasping for air. Shoo! A faint sound of breaking through the void rang out. The star-violent ape, which was 6 million kilometers in size and looked like a superstar, only took a single instant to directly block the path of the star porcupine. The distance between the two was only 6 to 7 million miles. Yixian only needed to throw a punch to turn this space porcupine into a mist of blood. Then, he would collect it and refine it into a middle-stage emperor-level blood essence. However, just as Yixian raised his arm and was about to punch out, the starry sky porcupine, which had already stopped in its tracks due to fear, had a flash of inspiration in its mind. It raised its head and howled, sending out a voice of begging for mercy. Ow! Elder, please don't punch the porcupine. We're on the same side. There's the aura of my direct bloodline descendant in your body. Hearing these words, Yixian was stunned for a moment. Then, he subconsciously searched his body. Not to mention, he really did find a very weak bloodline aura. It wasn't deliberately left behind. It was left in Yixian's body by accident. As for the owner of this aura of the bloodline, it was the immemorial porcupine. Chapter 44-32. Leave a pig alive? As he chewed on these words, a strange expression appeared on Yixian's face. At this moment, he was already certain that the starry sky porcupine in front of him was the direct ancestor of the primordial porcupine. It was just that he didn't know which generation it was. These two pigs were exactly the same. If that was the case, then this space porcupine couldn't be killed. After all, it was the ancestor of the primordial porcupine. If he really killed it and the primordial porcupine found out about it, they wouldn't be brothers anymore. Although it was a pity, this space porcupine was still a pinnacle middle-stage emperor. If he really killed it, it would be a decent amount of emperor blood essence. However, the emperor-sealing blood essence could be obtained from other places, and there was only one ancestor of the primordial porcupine. Yixian still understood the choice. What's more, he already had 9 emperor blood essences. It was enough to make a level 25 supreme treasure pill. If nothing went wrong, there was an 80% chance that he could make 4. And because one of them was an Emperor level 9 pinnacle Emperor blood essence, the chance of making 5 was above 60%. Yixian only needed 1. He still had 3 to 4 left for his subordinates. It was obvious that it was enough for him to use in a short period of time. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yixian instantly made a decision to give up on killing this starry sky porcupine. With a thought, his figure swayed and he directly retreated from the 8th transformation to the 4th devil ape. As a result, although his cultivation level had dropped from level 5 Universe Knight to level 1 Universe Knight, his body had also returned to its original size of 30 million feet. Previously, he was a few times bigger than a superstar, which was too inconvenient. Now that he was 10 million zhang, even though he was much bigger than the space porcupine, at least he didn't feel so awkward. Senior, you know my 108 generations of pig grandsons? Look at the bloodline energy he accidentally left in your body. You seem to have a good relationship with him. At this moment, when the space porcupine saw Yixian beg for mercy, it pondered for a moment before shrinking its body. Even its cultivation aura was restrained by a lot. Now, it was only at the first level of the universe sovereign. As long as one wasn't an idiot, one could tell what this meant. As his heart relaxed, The starry sky porcupine immediately walked in front of Yixian with a face full of smiles. It kept asking him about the situation of the primordial porcupine, and appeared to be rather relaxed. It was obvious that it didn't treat Yixian as a threat at all. This was understandable. After all, how could a being like Yixian let a person he didn't trust come into contact with his body? As for his 108 generations of pig grandson, since he was able to unintentionally leave behind a harmless bloodline aura in Yixian's body, it meant that his divine sense and even his blood had come into close contact with Yixian before. To be able to have such contact, they definitely had a close relationship. With this relationship, coupled with the fact that Yixian had restrained his killing intent, the starry sky porcupine wasn't a fool. He naturally understood that not only had he resolved the crisis, he'd even gotten himself a thick thigh because of it. 108 generations of pig grandsons? Upon hearing that the primordial porcupine was a junior to this guy, Yixian's face turned green. He and the primordial porcupine were brothers, and Yixian didn't intend to deny it. He couldn't lie to himself even if he wanted to. Similarly, he didn't doubt the words of the starry sky porcupine in front of him. Since it was a direct descendant, the starry sky porcupine in front of him would naturally be able to identify the bloodline aura left behind by the primordial porcupine in Yixian's body. How many generations of his pig grandsons would this be? There definitely wouldn't be any mistakes. In this way, if the primordial porcupine had to call this guy 108 generations of ancestors, then what about him? As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yixian's face instantly darkened, and an impulse to slap this guy to death was born in his heart. Although this thought suddenly popped up, but invisibly, a faint cold killing intent burst out from Yixian's body in an instant. Although the space porcupine was full of smiles and looked very relaxed, and didn't treat Yixian as a threat at all, in fact, this old guy was very shrewd. He had been paying close attention to Yixian's reaction. After all, after hearing his words, although Yixian directly restrained his cultivation and aura, and even shrunk his body size to about 10 million, that was all. Yixian still hadn't confirmed the relationship between the space porcupine and Yixian. It was a direct acknowledgement and recognition. Since that was the case, there was still a certain rhythm of variables. It was a matter of life and death, so he had to be careful. Of course, the facts also proved that it was right to be careful for 10,000 years. At this moment, the starry sky porcupine clearly felt a faint killing intent that was faintly emitting from Yixian's body. He jumped in fright, and the hair on his back stood on end. Hundreds of thoughts flew through his mind, and he instantly understood what was going on. If this space porcupine with terrifying cultivation really wanted to kill him, the murderous intent emitted from its body at this time would definitely not be so weak. Although this murderous intent was very faint, it was very clear. This showed that the other party actually didn't want to kill him in the bottom of his heart. At least the performance just now could prove this point. Right now, a faint killing intent suddenly sprouted in his eyes. It was clearly because he had said something wrong just now. The space porcupine was also a pig spirit. His brain turned slightly, and he instantly understood where the problem was. An expert of this level obviously cared about face. Suddenly, a good friend who was very close to him, and who was very likely to be on the same level as him, suddenly appeared as a 108th generation ancestor. To him, wasn't it based on the fact that he had a good relationship with him? Was he shorter for nothing? To be precise, he should be shorter by 108 generations. This kind of thing, even if it happened to him, he would probably immediately have the idea of killing. No, killing the porcupine to silence him. Thinking of this, the space porcupine trembled all over. Before Yixian made a move, he immediately raised his front hooves and stood up like a person. He said to Yixian with a smile on his face, "Of course, senior, no matter what relationship my 108 generation pig grandson has with you, that's between you and him. As for you and me, we feel like old friends at first sight, so we're naturally friends of the same generation. In this way, I'm his senior, and your cultivation is higher than mine. We'll each take a step back and call each other brothers, so we'll be even. No one will lose out, right?"